Today is Tuesday, April 5th, 2022. This is the Hanson Board of Selectmen meeting. Please join with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Weeks, do you mind reading this week's announcements?
My pleasure. All right, announcements. Special and annual town meeting is scheduled for May 2nd, 2022, 7:30 p.m. to be held at the Hanson Middle School Auditorium. Town election is scheduled for Saturday, May 21st, 2022, from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Hanson Middle School. And we're looking for citizens at large to become members of the newly revitalized Bylaws Review Committee. Volunteer applications may be found on the town website, www.hanson-ma.gov, or by calling the Selectmen's office at 781-293-2131. Volunteers are also needed on the following committees: the Bylaw Review Committee, Capital Improvement Committee, Conservation Commission, Cultural Council, Disabilities, Facebook Upkeep Committee, Highway Building Committee, Historical Commission, Memorial Day Patriotic Observance, Memorial Field Trustees, Nathaniel Thomas Mill Committee, Parks and Fields Committee, and the Zoning Bylaw Review Committee. And we have two Board of Selectmen meetings coming up, April 12th, 2022, and April 26th, 2022. That's it.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
First item on the agenda is a public hearing for dangerous or nuisance dog hearing in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 140, Section 157. I'm looking for a motion to open the hearing.
So moved.
Seconded. Thank you. This hearing is concerning a complaint that was received by Mr. Joseph Kenny, the Hanson Animal Control Officer, dated March 24th, 2022, to determine whether above the dog referenced above in this document is a nuisance or a dangerous dog pursuant to the provisions of General Law, Chapter 140, Section 157. Ms. Green, do you mind briefing us on everything else?
Yes,
Sorry, before we do that, thank you for reminding me for a vote. All in favor to open the hearing? Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Green, sorry.
okay. So we had an incident on Thursday, March 24th, where we had a small dog that was attacked by a larger dog. There were significant injuries to the smaller dog. The police were called, and we have Officer, is it Roday?
Yes, ma'am.
In the room to speak of what had occurred. Just to give you a little bit of background, Mass General Law, Chapter 140, Section 157, basically is the authority for nuisance or dangerous dog hearings. There is specific, basically orders that the Board of Selectmen can deem today by the dog based on testimony and recommendations. Our Animal Control Officer, Joe Kenny, I had asked him, I believe he is on his way. Sorry, right now. I believe he's on his way. I was just wondering if we had started, so. The dog, we believed, the incident occurred on Sawmill Lane. The dog came from the address of 808 West Washington Street, and that is where I believe Officer Roday had returned the dog once he was able to restrain the animal. And we received a written notice, which is required by the law, from the owners of the dog who was attacked to hold a hearing to determine whether the dog is a nuisance dog or a dangerous dog who attacked the small dog. At this point, I'd like to call up Mr. or Mrs. Coates just to talk about what had occurred that morning. Okay.
Do you guys mind just standing at the podium, just to be able to capture. And just for the record, do you mind just saying your names and what address you live at?
David Coates, 59 Sawmill Lane.
Louise Coates, 59 Sawmill Lane.
Great, and if you just mind just telling us what had transpired for that day and,
Well, I had taken the dog out, to do its business. This was around 6-ish in the morning, maybe a hair after 6. And we were out in the side yard. She was leashed. I'd taken her down and we were walking back up towards the front of the house. And I turned and it's this, at first I thought it might have been a coyote because sun was just coming up. It was light enough to see, but I thought it was a coyote at first, for a second, and then I looked and it was a dog, a good-sized dog. And so, I don't know, what seemed like 5 minutes, it was a second, and the dog was on my dog. Grabbed a hold of it. I tried to get the dog off it. I was holding on to the leash and trying to kick, and sorry. I'm fine until I have to talk about it.
It's okay, sir, just take your time, take your time.
So I tried to kick and get the dog off. It just grabbed a hold of it and wouldn't let go. Finally, my dog slipped her leash, came off around her neck, and the only thing that I could do is, kind of hit the dog with the leash, try to whip it, and that seemed to break it, and my dog took off to the porch, and I kind of followed behind, and the dog was following. It didn't seem to be interested in me. It wanted the dog. And by me, whipping the leash around at it, it kind of stayed back. I was able to get in the house, and the dog just followed us up onto the front porch and stayed there. And I called the police. They came down a few minutes later, and dog was just wandering around the front, over the neighbor's yard, whatever, tail wagging. It didn't seem like the police had any issue to get it, under their control. I'm not sure, because I was kind of watching my dog in the house and looking out the window for them. I thought they were going to come up to the house, but they didn't. And then we saw him walking down the street with the dog, and after a while, the officer came back, without the dog. I wasn't sure, and he said he had to take it back to the home. I'm not sure how he knew that it was from there, unless it did have a collar. I don't know if it had any tags. So, I did bring pictures. I think there was pictures submitted. I don't know if you wanted to see them.
There's more. It wasn't just a bite, it was a maul.
no, you're right. The pictures that were shared, it's just not a bite. It was the extent of the damage to
Yeah.
your dog is,
And we had to bring
Significant.
it.
We had to bring her back yesterday, and they had to put her to sleep, not put her to sleep, but put her under anesthesia to redo everything.
Because there was so much dead skin there that the stitches weren't holding, so. So,
I'm sorry you went through that, and how is, relatively speaking, how is your dog?
well, she's under sedation. She's on pills right now to keep her quiet. But physically, they say she should be fine.
Yeah.
Mentally, I'm not sure. She's certainly acting different, and we're leery about going out at night now.
I'm afraid
Knowing the
now.
dog was still over there. If it got out once, it can get out again.
I'm afraid to take her out to do her business now. I take a golf club outside with me, because I'm afraid.
Gosh, yeah.
well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that, and I'm sorry that you guys had to go through this. I know that dogs are just as precious as our own kids, and
Definitely.
I know that that this shouldn't really happen. You should be able to be out in your own yard
Right.
and feel safe and secure, and not have to bring out a golf club just because you know, there's a dog in the neighborhood.
And I won't forget listening to her screeching. Terrible.
Right. So, thank you. If you guys want to have a seat, that'd be great. And then is the owner of the dog, is that you guys? Do you mind just coming to the podium? Thank you.
Not very proud, but I'm the one.
Do you mind just stating your name and your address for the
Yes,
record?
my name is Hassan Frashkov, and the address is 808 West Washington, and we just moved there like 4 months ago, in end of November. So, the dog just got over the fence. I have a garden fence which I fixed. When I got the property, there was a fence, old fence over there, and it was all rotted, and they opened a hole. And I just put a like garden fence that big, but I find out he leaned towards the fence and get out. That's mean it was either coyote or fox. I mean, last few days I see the fox, they taking the chickens. So these dogs are bred for the livestock guardians. That's what they do.
What type of dog is it?
It's an Anatolian Shepherd
Okay,
dog.
yeah.
It's a Turkish dog. They're not very popular in this country, but the big farms, they have them, you know, like the other livestock guardian dogs. And I don't know what to say. That's like freaking accident. It's just, I don't mind them, but even me, I can't sleep for like week, you know? And every time that dog barks now, I wake up because I'm nervous too, you know, like I said, you gotta be kidding. And I never expect something like that from that dog because we're still calling him puppy, you know.
And how old
Hey,
is this pup? Oh,
It's 2 years old. Usually they don't mature until like 2.5 males. They're just big dogs, but they're very friendly with the kids and the human. They just afraid to protect the unprotected people, but it's probably was chasing like a fox or whatever, and next thing you know, he came in here and he just saw the dog and it just jumped on him without even realize that it's a dog or whatever, you know. And I wish you could have done more damage to him with that thing. It's just, I don't know what to say. And the officer brought the dog and he just grabbed him by the thing. And the lady, she came, they quarantined the dog and she pat him inside. He doesn't even bark to the people either. I just don't know what pulled the trigger, you know. So,
Thank you.
if you guys have any questions, if you sort of have any questions, you can ask me. I'm just very open for anything
So,
to say or whatever.
Yep, so the meeting will run through myself tonight. So, with that being said, Ms. Kemet, you had a question?
I actually had, a question for the dog owners. What is your cost for vet bills at this point?
It's mounting.
So far, it's just under 3,000.
No, it's more than.
Oh, just under.
It was 2,700 last
Okay.
week, and then we had to bring her back, and they had to do more extensive work yesterday. So it's another $968 on top
Okay.
of that, and we're not done.
Oh, that picture of the gash is extremely disturbing. I'm sorry, what is, Prashkov, is that your last name,
Yes.
sir? Has this dog ever had any other incidents?
No,
Okay, and is it licensed?
yes,
And
I
registered
registered,
with the
yes.
town? Okay,
right now, yes. I just moved here like end of November.
okay.
I mean, I bought the property earlier, but it just, I mean, there was some issues, so I had to move here, I had to.
Now what, you said that there were, and I understand if it was like,
The property, it's like fenced.
that's what I
and-
was gonna ask, so it's
and-
chicken fence kind of thing, or what?
No, it's a
Okay.
chain link fence,
Chain
like probably 75% of it.
Okay,
And on the back, it's like a chicken fence. It was like fence for the animals, because the
Okay.
lady, she had horses and donkeys and stuff like that.
Yep.
It was too old and it was breaking, and I put a like garden fence just to hold it, but now I have a like other like a chain link old fence which I have to put there because, you know, or I don't know, I
Now, do you
gotta,
feel confident that the chain link is going to be sufficient? Would you contemplate an electric fence for the dog?
Well, that's-
Because if it's compelled to go after small animals, and if you know that this particular breed of animal is gonna be compelled to, you know, and look, we're in the middle of nature here. We've got foxes, coyotes,
I know, I have
turkeys,
200 acres behind me.
yeah, so, I mean, we've got all kinds of conservation stuff and wild animals, so if it is an animal that's motivated that way, and if that's the way that it's bred, it's hard to
Yes.
do anything against an animal's nature, you know? So the reason I'm asking that is, if we know that that's a truth, that the animal is bred to do that, then it's probably gonna find another way to get out. Have you contemplated something beyond what you've done?
Yes, well, I just talked to my daughter on the way here. There is some columns like electrics.
Right,
They give a range.
yeah,
We had that in Norwell House when we had it. I didn't have it, my neighbors had it, so I asked them what it is because I saw the flags. He said, this for the dog, so they know they're not allowed to go on the other side. And, that's, I think, one of the solutions. Or if I can't use the dog for the purpose that it's bred for, I'm just gonna give up the dog to someone else in the farm in Maine. I have some friends if they want it, you know, but I'll try to. Because he grew up with us and it's kinda like, still acting like a baby, and I was shocked, you know, so.
So I have one.
I
one
can't
follow-up.
afford this to happen again. Let me put it this way, it just,
So my question for Mr. Prescott, correct?
Yes.
Is what kind of training have you put the dog into? Have you done any training prior to this?
no.
Okay.
I
Is
don't
that
wanna-
something that you would
That-
consider
Uh,
taking?
You can't train these dogs. I mean, I can spell you the name, you can research it. They're very intelligent dogs. They know one owner, and, they kinda, if they mature, they acting like intelligent. It's very hard to train them. It's not like a German Shepherd and this and that to do some other stuff. They just bred for that particular thing to protect, they stay outside, they don't like inside. They can watch like that all day.
I understand what he's saying. I
It's
grew up
just-
on a farm and we had a sheep herding dog and it really thought it was part of the sheep, like it's a breed thing. I
Yeah,
get
that's
what
how
you're
they
saying.
bred.
Yeah.
Because that's why it's not, that dog, it's not popular here because it was abandoned to, export it from Turkey. But over the years, a lot of immigrants live in Europe and stuff like that, and now, like, they just brought them to the farms. So.
Any questions on this side of the board? Mr. Hickey?
I actually have a couple of questions for the officer. I don't know if he needs to come up. or-
Yeah, if you can just come up to the podium, just so, the audio, thank you.
Okay, thank
If
you.
so the audio can pick them up.
According to the report, you were able to somehow get the dog.
Yes.
We want to have the officer identify
I'm
himself.
sorry?
We'd like to have the officer identify himself.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Officer Brian Roddy, Hanson Police Department.
How were you able to get the dog under control?
So in my duty bag, I carry a leash. Believe it or not, we get a call for stray dogs pretty frequently. So when I showed up, we were dispatched and the dog was on your front porch. And when I pulled up, it came down and it kind of circled the cruiser and I kind of waited a little bit just to see, how it was behaving. It's a pretty large dog. It was like approximately 125 pounds,
Oh,
pretty
wow.
big.
Okay.
And after a few minutes of it just kind of walking around the cruiser, going back and forth, I was able to get out. It approached me, it didn't appear aggressive, it wasn't showing its teeth, it wasn't growling, anything like that. And another officer arrived shortly after. We got a couple treats, and it was pretty calm around us. We tried to get it into the cruiser, just to secure it, just knowing that people would be leaving for work, school, all sorts of stuff. But it didn't really want to get in the cruiser, so I just have a small little slip leash, and I was just able to put it right around its head, and it was fine on the leash. We had an incident, I think it was in the summer, where one of the other dogs one of the puppies got out, I think. So that's how I recognized the type of dog. Like you said, it's not popular around here. And I was able to walk it across the street, no problem. And went right into the fenced area when the owner came out.
So that was gonna be my next question. How did you know which house to bring it to?
Right.
Yeah, so I don't remember, I think it might have been the summer. One of the puppies had gotten out, and then the female dog was on the side of the road, kind of near the puppy, kind of protecting the puppy. And cars passing by had called us, and we got there, and the female was very protective of the puppy, and the animal control officer arrived as well, and they were able to lift the puppy up and kind of bring the female back into the fenced area, into the property. So, like you said, it's a unique dog for around here. So I just kind of figured that was the property, the house that it belonged to.
Okay, but this was a different dog in a different family? No. Or was it?
No, he's
There's a
saying,
male and you have a female too, right? Yeah, there's a male and a female, so, but the male got out on, 2 weeks ago, in March.
Okay, so the mail got out for the report that I have in front of me?
Yeah.
But you said you were called to the house last summer.
At some point in the summer, yeah, officers had to go there.
I thought-
It was just it was a stray dog,
Sure.
and,
I'm sorry, officer, but, sir, I thought you said you moved here 4 months ago in November.
it might have been like the fall. I was working the desk, so when the officers responded.
He doesn't recall exactly what it was, but it sounds
Well,
like
there's
it's
a
the
big
same thing.
difference. And officer, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. There's a big difference between the summer
Yes.
and November. This gentleman just said he moved to town in November.
right.
Sir, when did you move to town?
I bought the property 2 years ago. I moved to residence in that town end of November, beginning of December. I used to live in, Norwalk.
Okay.
And did you have the dogs on the property before you moved here?
Once.
Okay,
Then I brought the female from Norwalk, and then I got some animals in here, chickens, I had 200 chickens, cows, goats. So I wasn't living here,
yeah,
so I was going back and forth. So basically, the female.
I'm sorry, sir, when were the puppies born?
When the puppies were born, July, maybe,
In July.
yes.
Okay, so the female dog would have been at this property in July, because you wouldn't want to be going back with the female dog and the puppies. So we can establish that the female dog and the puppies were there in July. Yet you didn't move here full-time until November. And-
Yes.
Okay, and officer, there could have been an Indian summer where it was possible that it was very warm in November. It could have been October or maybe late September. The time really doesn't matter, because I'm sure there would be a report, because you have to report every time
right.
you go to a house.
It would be in the log. We could look back in the log and you can see.
I don't think we need to. So, I don't know how many dogs were on the property, but according to this, at the time of the incident, the male dog was not licensed, according to this report. But now the male dog is licensed.
Yes.
But at the time this happened, the dog was not licensed.
Lisa, have we verified that?
That
It
it-
wasn't licensed.
No, have we verified that it is now licensed?
Yes, it is. Yes, the
sorry,
town clerk
Frahill.
verified it, that it is now licensed, yes.
Thank you, officer. I have
Okay.
no.
Any other questions?
Well, yes, I'm sorry, I do. So how many dogs do you have on your property? Okay, so the puppies are no longer there?
No.
And you've got the male and the female? Okay, and is it your intention to breed dogs there? Is that,
No.
Okay.
That was accident, basically,
okay,
because it was puppy. So I didn't even know that things happened.
yeah, okay, yeah,
So I have to call people that they know this breed, so I can get rid of them. You know, there is two went for I found some lady, she's a dog trainer, from New Hampshire, they have some big farm. They know the breed, so
Laura, I'm not gonna
There is
pretend.
no market for this kind of dogs because people, they don't know them. And especially around in here in Massachusetts, everybody has the farms and stuff like that. So basically, it's just, they're not like dogs, you can get them to your apartment. You still can when they're puppies, but this is not their nature.
They don't make good pets,
No.
basically, yeah, okay.
So it's just, he's not gonna be happy in the house, so basically that dog has to be outside with the animal. He can stay with the animal.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Through me, please. Thank you. Through me, please.
Okay, through you, Mr. Chair.
Hold on, Mr. Hickey. Mr. Mitchell, you had a question.
Are both dogs currently licensed? Or just one?
Well,
How come the other dog's not licensed?
well, because I have to decide what's gonna happen after tonight.
He still has to be licensed, sir. Your dogs have to be licensed, it's that simple, regardless of what you're gonna do tomorrow.
It will be, but, I just didn't, I have little issues. That's why I moved here, I have to move because, I mean, I really couldn't concentrate myself to go and register the dog because I had some financial situations after the COVID and, you know.
Okay. Mr. Hickey, you have a
Thank you,
question?
Mr. Chair. Officer, I'm sorry you didn't have to stay up there the whole time.
No worries. I didn't know if there were any other questions.
The only other question I would have through you, Mr. Chair, is, okay, I'm a cat guy, and it's only because of my 3 daughters that we've had cats through the years. But I've never had an accident with my cats. And we've had male and female in the house. Some of the cats at different times were outdoor compared to indoor cats. But one thing my wife made sure of is that we got our pets spayed or neutered. So I guess my question is to you is, after this accident last July, have the dogs been,
The male probably will be neutered because, usually they wait for these males to mature, do their job, then they neuter.
but at 2, okay, so at 2 years old, it's still a puppy, and they wouldn't do it then?
No, they can do it before 2 years.
They can do it.
Yes, they can, pardon,
If
sorry.
the dog is like walking on the like her, they just, if it's not mature, they don't like to do it because, it doesn't become the same dog if you do it earlier, I'm saying, if it's not mature yet.
Okay, any?
One more question.
Yeah,
Mr. Weeks.
Yeah, so, just to spare everybody from having to come up to the, podium, officer, have you only been to this residence twice, or do you know off the top of your head if you've been there more than once?
Oh, sorry,
Sorry, Joe, I think you were talking.
You gotta clarify which officer.
Stuck in there or something.
Joe,
I've only been there once. I was working the shift that we were
Yeah.
there the other time, I just happened to be working on the desk.
Okay, but you can recall twice from your perspective?
I can recall 2 times of experience with the dog at the front.
Okay, and then, guest officer.
Mr.
Thank you.
This officer then come up and introduce
Oh, yeah, Mr. Kenny, do you mind just coming to the podium?
Appreciate it, thank you.
Mr. Kenny, and do you mind just, introducing yourself, for the record?
So Joe Kenny, Animal Control, Hanson. On your question about how many times you're out there, I was out there once previous to the bite. I wasn't out there for the bite, I was actually on vacation, so I wasn't out there for that. But the previous time was the female dog that had puppies, and I think it was when they had first moved in. One of the puppies had like made its way to the front yard. So the mother was just out with the puppy, and it was barking at the cars and stuff.
How big
and
was the puppy?
The puppy was probably about a week and a half
No,
to
it's
2
like
weeks.
a size.
Oh, yeah, like hand size.
That
Yeah.
puppy
Yeah, tiny.
out on the street
Mm-hmm.
somehow.
Yeah,
It just, there is no way that puppy to walk there. I don't even know what happened.
mm-hmm. Well, that's gonna get to my, my question for you after, if you don't mind. So this is the story that you were talking about where the mother was, you know, with the puppy and?
Yeah.
So basically twice we've been
So
out?
basically twice, yeah.
Think of-
2 incidents that I can
Okay,
have, and I think they were relatively new in town, so I think that's the only 2 incidences we've been out there for.
okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep.
And then for you, you know, how often, because it seems like it's happened twice in a span of 6-ish months, how often do the animals get off the property? Because it sounds like, this is one incident, but it sounds like there was another incident, and then, it sounds like you have lots of animals as well. Have you ever had any animals walk off the property or anything else?
Well, besides my calves went over the river
Yep.
last year when the river was like no water, and they were on the other side of the river, so then I stopped letting them out. They are on the fence now.
Okay.
Like I said, I just moved there, and like I said, I sleep there all night, so
Yep.
I don't wanna wake up every night and be on stress what happened and
Yeah.
where the animal is hit by the car or whatever, because that's a really busy street. I never realized because it wasn't there, and now
Yeah.
it's just like,
No, I can appreciate that. I can appreciate the stress that you're going through as a pet owner. I can appreciate the stress that you're going through as not only a pet owner, but the situation just the way it is. But it sounds to me like it's a perimeter issue and it's a security issue that needs to get resolved immediately despite whatever happens. Because regardless of this situation, which we have to attend to tonight, it definitely sounds like there's larger issues that we kind of have to also take into consideration, remediating things moving forward, because, that's a lot of stray in 6 months, you know, and I think that's important. So, that's all I had. Thank you.
Mrs.
Thank
Kemp?
you.
No, Mr.
Yeah, I
Kenny.
think it's still okay.
Mr. Kenny, having dealt with this situation, you know, do you have an assessment of what might help to remedy this? For instance, and I'm sorry, Mr. Prashkoff mentioned that his dog is not neutered, that there is not an electric fence. These seem like they would be things that potentially could, you know, help
Yeah.
this situation. And he also mentioned that the dog, just by virtue of its breed, is very motivated to chase smaller animals because that's what it's bred to do. Do you have an assessment of what you would recommend here?
So, been out on the property, most of the areas are fenced in. They have like a 6-foot fence around most areas. And at least the first time we were out there, the male was actually in one of the fenced-in areas. And granted, I believe they're a working breed. We've talked to him at large. It's a breed that he uses to protect his livestock. So it's difficult because that's what they're made to do.
Right.
And as far as like the neutering and spaying and neutering stuff goes, I don't know. Granted, he had puppies, so I don't know if they're used for breeding purposes, in which case, we can't really
He
fix
said they were
them.
not going to
So if
be.
they're not gonna be breeding,
Yeah.
I recommend that everyone that's not breeding an animal has it fixed, in general. But, if they're not being used for breeding, I think everyone's pet should be spayed or neutered. Helps to reduce behavioral issues, reduce regression. But breed-wise, it's difficult because it's a guardian dog that protects livestock. So if a fox comes running into the yard, the dog's purpose is to chase the fox off. Keeps the livestock safe. So saying if it's a dog that runs into the yard, it's probably gonna do the same thing that it would do to a fox. So that kind of stuff you can't take out because it's the nature of the dog. I definitely recommend making sure that the gates are secured, the property is, fence lines are secured. But outside of that, I think like the behavior of the dog was protecting its property. Granted, it was off of its property, which is why we're here today. So it's a matter of keeping the dog within the fenced-in areas. So securing fence lines, making sure that when they're let out, they stay in the fence lines is the biggest concern for me.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for,
For this gentleman here.
well, I was gonna say for, animal control.
Oh, I'm sorry, no.
Okay.
Nope, I'm sorry.
No. All right, thank you, Mr. Kenny.
No problem.
All right, Mr. Mitchell?
Okay. Sir, so this is something that this board can't order, but would you be willing to help these folks with their medical bills with their puppy? For what for the incident that your dog caused?
I'll be glad. Definitely. I mean, it's just.
Again, that's not something this board can order you to
Listen,
do.
I'm an animal person. I grew up with animals, and I feel very bad for Edo because I had animals since I don't remember myself, from back in the country. So if anything happens to my animals like that, I feel the same way, you know, I feel bad, you know, but I can help them, and we can talk. I didn't have the information because the officer, when he brought the dog, I asked him, I didn't know anything, the details until yesterday morning, before I talked to this lady. I had no clue exactly what happened and what is the damage because the animal control lady, she came to, what they call it, quarantine the dog for rabies, and she gave me the order to quarantine the dog, and I asked her, she said, I don't know exactly what happened. So she came and inspected the dog, she pat the dog inside, I mean, they're very friendly, especially to the females and kids. The male could be a threat, but if you're female and a kid, you're safe. But, I mean, I'm glad to help, we can talk, you know, like, no problem.
So,
Because
One more question for him. And the second question is, would you be willing to secure the rest of that fence on there?
oh, that's not a question, I have to do it.
Right, but I'm saying the fence, the chicken wire,
No, that's
making
my dog.
that a full fence so it's all the way around.
That chain link fence he's talking about, it's a 6 foot.
Yep.
It's gonna be all around the back, it's just already a gate over
Okay.
there right now. And I just gotta continue through the gate down. I have the wire already, and I have a gentleman.
How much time would you need to do that, sir?
Probably a week, maybe, still, because I'm already doing it. And I already have a dog kennel 6 foot high.
So for me, I would be fine with somehow figuring out, having this gentleman secure his fence fully, get somebody to inspect it. I'm not sure if it's his job, but maybe the village, give him an adequate amount of time, make sure that it's fully secured, and then having these two get together somehow. Again, that's not something we can order, so I don't want anybody thinking that the board is telling you that's what you have to do. It's the right thing to do as a neighbor and as a dog owner, you know,
I'll be glad.
and that's what I would like to see out of this.
and, registering,
And registering the other dog immediately,
Okay.
you know, and if you decide in a month
I couldn't
that,
find the papers even for the male dog when they asked me.
uh-huh,
Because I moved, and my moving was like, I have a big family, my mom, she lives with me still. She's disabled, I have 3 kids.
maybe your daughter can help you find the paperwork.
Yeah. I know.
So yes, and like Chairman Dyer said, registering the other dog immediately, and then if you make a change a month later, then that's fine.
And-
But
yeah, and the one other thing I would say, until the fence is constructed, it needs to be restrained at all times
In
while
the kennel.
outside.
Kept in the
Or
kennel. He
kept
said
in the
he
kennel.
has a kennel.
Yeah, so it has to be,
Kennel, and he has a like metal, brand new, wire, like metal thing inside. So I don't cut and loose no more since then because, you know, I used to cut and loose, run around because when you cut and loose, they come alive. This is what they do, you know. You tie that dog on a chain, it's not a dog no more. That's it. You're not going nowhere until everything is secure because I can't afford for this to happen, you know, like that.
Ms. Kemet?
Yeah, I just, there's been you've been in town a very short period of time. There's already been 2 incidents where your dogs have gotten out. I really sincerely hope that you're taking this seriously, because the 3rd time, it just can't happen. And I am trying to put myself in the shoes of these people. I have a dog, I love my dog, I walk her all the time. These guys are bored to tears of hearing about it all the time. But I'm at Burridge all the time with my dog, and I've had dogs come at me, and I know what that's like. I know what it's like. And as a young kid, I was attacked by a dog. It took me years to get over it. So I understand the trauma. And yes, it's great if you guys make a financial arrangement, but I don't want these people living in constant fear that that dog's gonna get out again. So you've got to assure us, sir, that you are gonna take this seriously, and that this will not happen again. And I would urge you to contemplate whether neutering would be something that would be beneficial in this situation, particularly for the male, because I think, as our, animal control officer mentioned, it probably would help with some of the behavior. But, he's an animal. You can't change really what he was bred to do, and nor do we want to, but we want him doing it on your property and nowhere else.
Mr. Weeks, anything else?
No, I think Laura kind of hit the points I was gonna make. With the situation that we're in right now, my heart goes out to you folks, but it's not just you. I mean, this is on TV now. You're gonna have a whole bunch of people looking over their shoulder now. So it's not just the people in this room, it's everybody in that vicinity, in that area that are gonna be, curious. So it's just, again, be mindful of all of that. And I'm hearing you clearly have a passion for dogs. You clearly care. You clearly do. All the characteristics of this animal, of this dog that you have, you've said, it's bred to be able to protect. It's bred, you thought it was going after a fox, putting it in a kennel. It's not, it's gonna be riled up and, it's supposed to run and all that. And we're talking about literally confining this animal, even for a short amount of time, but also, through the fence. I just want to make sure that it's, it's right for you, your family, and the community in general. I'm kind of like Jim. I have cats because my kids forced me to be a cat guy, but I'm a dog person at heart. So my heart really does go out to you folks. It's just a matter of, being mindful that it's the right fit, because God forbid this happens again, there's gonna be a lot of heartbreak, and no one wants that. So, I feel bad for everyone in the situation.
Mr. Chair?
Hold on. Okay, hold on 1 second. Ms. Green?
Mr. Chair, if I may I suggest that the owners of the dog work with our animal control, Mr. Kenny, on establishing the correct kind of area, the type of fencing, and any other type of secure mechanisms that you could recommend that will ensure the dog stays confined within their property.
Can I talk on that?
Mr. Kenny?
In a lot of cases with these situations, the outcome is that if the dog is walked on public area, we walk them like a 6-foot leash and muzzled, and that if it's on the property, it's confined with a 6-foot chain link fence. I think it's generally a pretty protective way to do it, because if it's off of their property and walking on a leash, I think it's a farm dog, so it probably doesn't go on long walks, but if it is, it helps, like if there was a small dog that came running up to it. It is a helpful situation. And I think like a 6-foot chain link is a good, safe way, and it's something that's doable for them. Most of the back property is already fenced in. So if they fix up that, I think that's a doable thing, and it would help protect the dog from getting off of the property. Yet, if the dog is walked off the property, say it has to go to a neighbor's house, they're walking the dog, right? It's a good idea to have that, because if it is protective and something small comes running up to it, we don't want to see it happen.
You're referring to muzzling the dog.
Yeah, when on public property.
All right. Mr. Hickey?
Through you, Mr. Chair, everybody seems to be making suggestions to this gentleman. It's his dog, and I understand that. But ending the discussion on this, I would like to hear from the Coates. At the beginning when they spoke, they told us the physical condition of the dog, the mental condition of the dog, and the financial situation with the dog. Through this whole conversation, 45 minutes into this, I haven't heard what you would like to see happen.
Thank you. I mean, I feel bad for the dog. I feel bad for you. I know it's the dog that did it, but I'm not going to feel comfortable unless I'm not advocating euthanizing the dog. I mean, that's not fair. But I mean, it's a residential area now. It's not farmland anymore. I mean, yeah, he has a farm, but it's a residential area, lots of dogs, few kids. I mean, West Washington's not, I mean, we're in a complex there. There's not many kids, but there are a lot of dogs. And I know there's dogs out on West Washington Street. Is this the right fit for that kind of dog? It sounds like he was willing, he said if he has to, he'll send the dog to a friend in Maine.
Well, let it go.
That's what I would, my recommendation is to remove the dog from the neighborhood.
Ms. Kement?
And I understand what you're saying. I do think that this dog needs to be secured. I don't feel comfortable with just saying, sir, could you please secure your dog? There needs to be follow-up here. So I think we need to have our animal control officer go out, and I think we need to give this gentleman a specific time frame that this work needs to be done by, and then I think we need to have our animal control officer go out and validate that he feels comfortable that this dog isn't gonna be able to get out of whatever the, new arrangement is. That's the only way I'm gonna feel comfortable not sending this dog away.
So is that a motion?
Yes, I'm making that motion.
So there's a motion to erect a fence around the property that's at the recommendation of a 6-foot chain link fence?
Whatever specifications our dog officer or animal control officer, I don't wanna reduce your rank, feels is appropriate, but what we've discussed is a chain link fence. This gentleman has also indicated he might be willing to do an electric fence, which I think would probably be an additional security. So I make that motion, and we need to give a specific time frame. And I was sort of looking at when our next meeting is, because I think it needs to, I'd like to hear a report back.
Sure.
And I don't want it sort of loosey-goosey, okay, we're asking you to go and we don't have a follow-up. So I was thinking the 12th is too soon, because that's next week. But I was thinking the 26th, I want to know that all of that work is done by then.
Sure.
And until such time, the dog needs to be kept in the kennel.
Sure, and can I ask you to amend your motion as well?
What would you like me to say?
To add that, if the dog is outside its property, that we have a muzzle.
Muzzle, okay,
on
okay, so, yep, I amend it to that
How do
effect.
we know it's not gonna come back? He had no time to get away from the dog with our dog. No time at all. It just pounced right on our dog. How do we know it's not gonna happen again?
And it was lucky it wasn't me. I mean, I was on the ground a couple of times they're wrestling around. My dog trying to get away, that dog's lashed onto its rear legs, not to mention what she's got across her chest. You've seen the
I would
pictures.
like for you to see the pictures.
I saw them yesterday.
Oh, we've got
But-
more.
But,
It's heartbreaking.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Hickey?
if I could help the coats out.
Yes.
I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. We have no authority to have that dog moved for one incident. The board has decided to give him 1 month. You don't know if the dog is gonna come back. You don't. And I'm sorry, but we're definitely not gonna euthanize the dog, and we can't send it off to a friend in Maine on one incident. And I feel for you. But you can't ask us to do something that is totally out of the question. There'll come a day, and it'll be by April 26th, that all the work on the property will be completed. And then hopefully you'll feel safe. Until then, I can't assure you of anything. But on the 26th, if it's not done, our animal control officer will take the next steps. That's all I can tell you. That's it.
I can guarantee that dog will never get out.
So,
I guarantee. They can't, but I will.
all right, so I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded by Mr. Mitchell. All in favor? 5-0. So with that being said, we will be following up.
I just want to say something. Okay? I don't want to make up different story, and I wasn't there. I'm an animal person since I was born. When that accident happened, I know it happened just automatically. I saw a lot of dog fights. Not like these dogs are fighting each other in the herd for the domination and everything. But if that dog was on a leash, you should have let the leash go right away because.
Mr. Prescott, I'm just going to, yeah,
No,
no,
it's not about that.
Mr. Prescott, I'm just going to close the hearing. And I appreciate, I appreciate the sympathy from yourselves, and my condolences to you guys for going through that. But I think what we're going to do is we'll try this solution. There will be follow-up through our animal control officer, Kenny, and we'll go from there. And hopefully this does not happen again, because I think the outcomes on this would be different.
He understands what we're asking.
So Ms. Green will follow up with yourself with it all written out. Mr. Kenny will be CC'd on that, and that way we'll be able to have it all written out, and it's clear instructions of what's to happen. So with that being said, I'm looking for a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Moved, seconded. All in favor? 5-0. Thank you. So the next thing on the agenda, if you guys want to stick around, you're more than welcome to. If not, I would not take offense to people leaving.
Were there other I didn't even think to ask other people if they had any, if there were people that wanted to speak.
It's too late now, so.
So will this meeting will be a meeting on the 26th, or?
We'll get a report back from our animal control officer, and if he has not complied by that date, then we will be deciding what to do.
And will we be notified?
We'll make sure you get notified.
Yeah, it'll be on our agenda, ma'am, under the meeting. It won't be a hearing like we did tonight, but it'll be on our agenda. The chairman will put it on there, and then we'll discuss further.
Nope, thank you. Ms. Green, do you mind just making a note for the 27th, is it?
26th.
26, that we just
Absolutely.
notify all the parties involved, CC.
And then I
Mr.
would
Prescott.
send him a letter of exactly what we're asking of him, so he understands.
Yes.
I would,
Certified
perhaps
mail.
certified mail or some type of return receipt.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, we can even hand deliver it as well.
Yep.
Thank you.
In the past, we've attach pictures along with that, so we have it documented. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, good idea.
Keep track of things.
Thank you, Mr. Kenny, you were very helpful.
Both of you. Appreciate it.
And thank you, Mr. Rade.
Just kind of standing out there with them as they talk.
Yeah.
It might get a little, yeah.
You got your striped shirt?
We didn't put in the well, maybe we put in the motion, but.
If you guys
just in case
need
we
me,
didn't,
just
we have to
give me
make
a
sure that you
call,
get that
right up there.
the dog licensed.
Thank you.
Yes.
So I don't know if it was in the motion, I don't know if it's gonna get caught, but somebody
No,
has to
but
follow
add that
up.
in.
Yeah,
The license for the second animal.
Yep.
Please.
And if there are puppies or anything like that, because now I don't know if there's puppies on the property or
He
not.
said there was
so-
only
He
two
said-
left.
He said
I
it
know,
was just
but
a
he-
male
and a
and
female.
female.
I know, but, and I don't want to speak out of school because no one's in the room right now, but, he also didn't tell us that there was another incident with a female dog and a puppy, so I just want some verification on that, so that he's doing
Absolutely.
everything he needs to do.
If that,
We'll
yeah, if
do
the
all the
animal
follow-up.
control officer could report back to us numbers of dogs and verify that licenses are in place and that the fence has been erected according to what we requested.
Yes.
That would be great.
Thank
Will
you.
do, absolutely.
All right. How you doing, ma'am? Good, thanks. So just to move people in and out of the room real quick, because I think it's going to be a long night. There is for appointments, I see Mr. Stewart here. It's for an appointment to the Bylaw Review Committee. I'm just going to jump down to appointments real quick.
So moved.
So I have a motion to appoint.
Second.
Second, all in favor? 5-0. Thank you very much for stepping up, Alex.
Congratulations. That was easy. Came with a notebook and everything.
So, is there, anyone else? I know that we have recreation. Ma'am, are you here for?
Yeah, I'm here for the
All right. All right, Ms. Frahill, I'm looking for a motion to appoint Ms. Frahill to the North River, Commission.
Do we have an opening? Did somebody resign from that? Because we had somebody in there, and then Mr. Kemet was the alternate, so I don't recall ever seeing anybody resigning from that position.
I have not received any resignation letters from anyone from this committee, so,
Okay.
friend that told me that a position was open for Hanson, so.
Interesting.
All right, well, could we
Check
make,
the website and
Can
see
we,
if,
can we,
make it conditional?
can we
that.
provisionally appoint her? If we still have somebody, we obviously don't want to kick them to the curb, but.
yeah, absolutely, and what we'll do is
you
we'll
know.
verify tomorrow whether there is a vacancy, and if there is, we will reach out, to Ms., is it Freehill? Freehill, to let her know.
Okay,
Absolutely.
Mr. Mitchell,
Mr.
yep.
Chair, I'm not comfortable with that. Let's wait and see if there's an opening, and then we'll appoint her. I mean, we're having a meeting next week, so we can find out by
That's
next.
true.
or,
Okay.
You know,
yeah.
So, and now that you came tonight, and we see you in person, I don't think there's any reason
Yeah.
to, is there any questions for Ms. Frahill right now while we should have her? And if not, we'll just appoint her next week. Is that all right
She
with you?
seems very passionate about it. Her letter was, was great.
Great. Mr. Tarvis, you had your, hands up?
Sure, Tarvis, 491 Washington Street. I would recommend, looking over where you, at the beginning of the meeting, you go over the boards that are, looking for, that need to be updated.
You're taking the words out of my mouth. I was just about to say
I have
that.
the same thought.
Between you,
Fear to knowledge.
that's what it is. Between you and Laura, I gotta learn to speak faster.
Because I got appointed onto the historical commission back in over the summer, and that's been full since then, but it still appeared on every single agenda. since.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just double check everything would be.
thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Tarvis.
Can I, just make it a formal, can we just send out an email to all the chairs? I was just about to ask that. Just to see, how many vacancies we actually have.
All right, any questions for Ms. Freehill? No? All right, thank you very much, and we'll
Thanks
be in
for coming.
touch. Thank you.
Thank you.
So if I may, Mr. Chair?
Ms. Green?
On the subject of appointments, so the last few days, Lucia and I have actually been going through past agendas to look, beyond us, to look for appointments that might not have had letters gone out or might not have been logged properly. So we have been actively doing that the last few days. It's taken us a little time, but we are actively working to update all of that, so.
Okay, so just through you, Mr. Chair, one of the issues that I had brought up to the former town administrator and to our executive assistant was that I did not think that we were following an appropriate protocol when people applied by letting them know, thank you for applying, we appreciate it. And here's when we'll be discussing your appointment. And then sending them a letter, letting them know that they need to go get signed in with Beth and all that good stuff. But it sounds like you guys are getting us back on track there.
Yes, we are.
Okay,
Yes,
much
absolutely.
appreciated.
Thank you. Mr. Tarvis, are you just here for,
I'm just here for the show.
just here for the show? Okay, great.
You already saw it.
So with that being said, Ms. Green?
So we do have one more appointment for Mary Foley as Board of Registrar for a 4-year term.
All right, Mary Foley, she is actually on the board right now, correct?
Oh, I'm sorry, we're reappointing, yes.
Reappoint.
My
Yep.
apologies.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? 5-0. Sir? Oh, okay.
All right.
All right, with that being said, I think, we can jump down to, Recreation Business Plan Fiscal Year '23 Budget Presentation. Mr. Malisi, Ms. Flanagan, you might come into the podium.
How's it going? Everybody here knows me, but I'll state my name just in case. Frank Malisi, 604 Brook Street, Recreation Commissioner. The Board of Selectmen asked us a couple of meetings ago to present a business plan for fiscal year '23 and '24. This is the business plan that was approved at the last Recreation Committee meeting, sorry. So we will go ahead and get started. This is the fiscal year '23-24 business plan that we came up with. If you guys want to go through, and I'll just read out the objectives and missions is the first page. So, as adopted in our Recreation Committee policies and procedures, the mission statement is to advance recreation and leisure time activities that enhance the quality of life. The purpose of the Recreation Department is to meet the diverse recreational, cultural, athletic, and leisure time pursuits of the residents with and organized and to encourage participation and enjoyment that should be held at a safe and well-equipped facility on a year-round basis. Our unofficial statement that I like to put out is provide excellent recreation for all residents of all ages within the town of Hanson while maintaining the historical Camp Kawani for the future generations.
Love it.
And if anybody has any questions during the meantime, please feel free to interrupt me. So, the next page that we have is fiscal impacts to COVID-19 on Camp Kawani. As you can see in fiscal year 2018 and 2019, 2019 having roughly 3 months of COVID impact on it. Our salary baseline was $179,600. Our operating expenses were $87,000 with a total revenue of $269,508. Fiscal year 2019, with that expected 3 months of COVID impact that we had there, $184,000 and change for salaries. Operating expenses were $107,000 and change with a total revenue of $204,000 and change. The COVID overview was, this is the years that we were directly impacted with COVID. Obviously, 21, we were essentially 100% shut down because of COVID. Salaries was $95,000, operating expense of $52,000, $312, with a revenue of only $66,000, $573. Obviously, that's a significant cut to our revenues that we had there during that fiscal year. Fiscal year 22, we had some openings with COVID. In the summertime, and also, it kind of stopped in November. Our estimated salaries was $91,840 with an operating expense of $60,000 and some change, with a revenue of $184,453. Is there any questions about that?
Mr. Malisi,
Yeah, sure.
so I just want to clarify, so when, on the second sheet here, when you say revenue, is that just money coming in? That's not your gross,
That is money that we have coming in.
Okay.
That's money that we have coming in.
So I would be correct on saying fiscal year 18, you guys would have a profit of $2,908?
2,900, that would be about right. I do have the past fiscal years here. I could.
Well, if you take salary and operating.
That sounds about right.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't
So I just wanted to make sure I'm doing.
We did not have a $20,000, carry forward to the next fiscal year.
Right, I just wanted to make sure I was doing my
No.
math right when I was looking at this.
Yep.
So, great, thank you.
So obviously, just to keep on this right here, with the current salary and operating expenses that you notice in fiscal year 21, it was barely changed in fiscal year 22. Yet the camp still held a lot of events during fiscal year 22. Obviously not a full run of them, but fiscal year 22, obviously we have the remaining of this fiscal year coming up, and we did. So we have a full set of events for the same operating budget that we actually had when we have no events and salary as well. You'll notice that the salaries in 18 and 19 were obviously a lot higher. Operating expenses were significantly higher as well. So right now, we're running the camp at full capacity, at half budget, essentially, is what we're doing. So obviously, the fiscal impacts on the next page for continued. Cost of materials and labor have risen substantially. It is no surprise that the camp is made up of wood, and wood has risen by this chart that I took at, has risen over 400% from the time COVID first started until when this was taken, I believe, in mid-March. Is there any questions about that page?
I just have,
Ms. Kemet,
Sure.
when you have a breath.
I don't have COVID.
I have that effect
the
on
record.
people sometimes.
For 18 and 19, thank you, Jim. Were the salary expenses larger because we had a director at that time?
It was, so it was the director and it was the Cove staff as well, when we had
Okay.
Cove staff there as well. Yep.
Oh,
Yep, so
okay.
there were
Yep.
some changes with that. Also, the caretakers were being paid, not being paid more, but working more hours. So we had a lot more caretaker hours that were in that as well.
Thank you.
Obviously, during the second half of 2019, or fiscal year 19, excuse me, we had to make cuts to employment because we didn't have any revenue coming in and things like that, and that continued on to 21 and also into 22. We're still having that same impact right now. So the next page would be the total salary expenses that we're anticipated to have for fiscal year 23 and 24. The total salary expenses, this is also including the administrative assistant that's up at the camp as well, and the cost for that. Total expenses we estimate to be around $200,000 fully funded. That is with Cove staff, that is with a facilities manager, a event coordinator, the camp staff, and the clerical staff. We do not anticipate hiring Cove staff this year, just because the beach, we haven't gotten any applications for lifeguards and things like that. And the pay grade that we would pay at the camp is significantly lower than somewhere else.
How much is the lifeguards being paid at the Cove?
At the Cove, I believe the scale is $16 to $20 an hour right now, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know off the top of my head.
I think,
Increased it last year, right?
I believe it's $16 to $20 an hour. I know that if you go to Chick-fil-A, it's $19 an hour to work at Chick-fil-A.
I was just about to say, that's no surprise that, you know, applicants for lifeguards are 0 this year, when DCR is hiring lifeguards at $26 an hour. Let me just repeat this. DCR is paying folks $26 an hour for the same job.
The state
plus-
agency is paying them $26
Right,
an hour. Yeah,
right,
exactly.
but for, what I'm saying here is, I work for DCR, and just to see them jump up from $16 an hour from last year to $26, that just shows how competitive this market is. And,
We don't have any applicants either. They've been posted for several weeks now, and we haven't had one single applicant for our Cove staff. But we're also, with the bee situation up there, we're not fully ready to open the beach. And Frank can speak to it later on, but, our goal this year is to get the beach back so that we can open next year.
Excuse me, so we have the bee situation again?
So, no,
It hasn't gone away.
so let me just clarify, there is no bees currently on the beach as it stands right now.
Okay.
We are working for things to remediate, but the problem with remediation of these bees is it costs us money which we do not have. So in order for us to stay within the budget of the town, and obviously not put a burden on the town, our plans to renovate the beach into a more natural habitat than it was before, which was the recommendation of conservation in order to get it back up to where the bee situation would not be there. That would be mostly in our fiscal year 23 budget that we're looking for. We're looking to utilize different funds from the town to do that, mainly CPC. They have a lot of extra money that they are trying to throw around, so we'll see if we're gonna be the recipient of that. But as of right now, we do not have Cove staff, and the budget that I'll show you later on the Excel sheet, only includes the facility manager or the event coordinator position, not both. So that's where that is. Fiscal, yep, go ahead.
So, Mr. Malisi, I just wanted to clarify then, on the on the fourth sheet, where it's total salary expenses fiscal year 23-24. I just want to make sure that I'm clear on this. So what the budget that you're proposing does not include Cove staff.
Does not include Cove staff.
So I could scratch off that 30,000 there. Okay.
This is for a fully funded camp. This is the business plan that we have for a fully funded camp. You'll see in the actual budget that I have at the end of this,
Okay.
where our actual budget will be. I want it to be transparent so everybody sees exactly where we're spending our money. And I don't want people to second guess saying we're going off and buying Ferraris and Lamborghinis when we can't even afford a Fiat. So,
Okay.
So yes, the Cove staff and the facilities manager position, or the event coordinator position, will not be filled. So that would be roughly $52,500 cut out of the salary budget that we would have there. In fiscal year 24, hopefully when we're in a better place, our total salary expenses would be $210,500. And the next page I can kind of explain where that increase would come from. On the total salary expenses for fiscal year 23-24 on the continued page, January of 2024, the wage increase, minimum wage increase is gonna be 5.25%, up to $16 an hour. I'm sorry, up to $15 an hour. That would account for a bump for all of our caretakers up to, if the lowest caretaker right now is making $4.25, it would be a 75 cents bump for those caretakers. Probably discussing the bump with the current caretakers as well. If they're making $15 an hour, we would probably want to bump them up to the $15.75 to keep it in line with all the other caretakers as well. If the beach is open, the Cove staff wages would be subsidized by the fees that we would charge for using the beach, the Cranberry Cove passes. Recreation Director, we do not anticipate being filled on fiscal year 23-24. And the camp staff for seasonal and part-time caretakers is included in the camp staff budget as well. So that's caretakers that we would have for the wedding season, caretakers that we'd have specifically for the summertime, just to do a couple hours a week and help with events and things like that.
Ms. Kemet?
Yes, just a question through you, Mr. Chair, to Ms. Green. do we currently have the positions of facility managers and event coordinator up at Camp Kawani? And if not, what do we need to do to get there so that we can position ourselves for what these folks are proposing for the following fiscal year?
So the positions, the job descriptions were before the wage and personnel not long ago. And I believe the positions were actually already there. They just needed to update the job descriptions. I'll double check in the most recent, wage and personnel classification that they did to see if the positions are there.
Thank
If
you.
they are there, then there's no further action. If not, then they would need to go before town meeting, to create the positions.
So so the facilities manager position, when we brought him in front of wage and personnel, that was actually a change and an edit to the facilities manager position that was here at Town Hall. We just specified that towards Camp Kawani. I don't believe that needs to go to town meeting, but the event coordinator position does need to go to town
Okay.
meeting. I believe it is in the warrant for town meeting this year, if I checked
okay.
it correctly, or if I was here last week during the Board of Selectmen meeting, that I think I heard that. But, that is one of the positions that we're looking to get filled for in town meeting. The facilities manager, from my understanding, was already set, but Lisa can already verify that with me.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions about the, total salary expenses?
Mr. Hickey?
Yeah, Frank, correct me if I'm wrong, Cove staff this year, $30,000, but no Cove staff.
No Cove staff.
Okay, but next year, when things hopefully rebound, you will have a full Cove staff.
If we are able to have a full Cove staff, yes, next year, yes, I would love to have a Cove staff.
Okay, so the Cove staff this year, even though you're not having, it's in here for $30,000, and that's so many lifeguards and a beach director and all that, it's $16 an hour. Yet you want a full Cove next year. And you went up to 31,575. So correct me if I'm wrong, that is a 4% increase.
5.25.
It's 5.25?
Right there.
Yeah, he put that in the thing.
Okay, so at 5.25, my numbers are gonna be a little off, but you're gonna pay your lifeguards next year somewhere around 17 and a quarter.
I cannot give a number for a situation that has not been approved by wage and personnel. Right now, our budget for that is between 16 and 20. I can't say we'll pay them $30 next year an hour to do it, right? This is, if everything stays the same, this is what we would expect to pay for that particular portion of the position. It wouldn't be something along the lines of, go ahead, Audrey.
I'm sorry, this is hypothetical. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not there yet, so
Right.
we don't know. You know, this is what we're anticipating. Same with the fiscal year 23. Frank put the Cove staff, this is a wish list. This is what we would like. It's not what we're gonna get because
Yeah.
we don't have the money for it. But, you know, as for a business plan, this is ideal. We're
Yeah.
just not there. So,
Exactly.
and the fiscal year 24 is just a hypothetical, you know? At the end of fiscal year 23, we'll have a more firm idea of what we can do in 24, and we'll have better numbers.
Yeah, and on the last page of this demonstration, you'll see it'll go from that hypothetical perfect business scenario actual into the numbers of where we're looking for the budget for fiscal year 23. So this is my first time making a business plan. So when I looked up business plan on Google, it said, what would your dream business be like? And, you know, this is not particularly my dream business, but this is more palatable than, you know, me saying $100,000 for Cove staff. So yeah, I can't reasonably anticipate we'd pay a lifeguard next year $24 an hour when we only have it approved for 16 to 20 right now.
Ms. Scott?
But to that point, and I think this is where Jim was going, if we already know right now we're underpaying, it's not gonna get better next year.
Correct.
So are there some, and you don't need to answer this, but are there some actions that need to be taken, potentially increasing what that bandwidth is that we're willing to pay people, so that you're able to attract and open up that Cove next year, if that's the direction you go in?
So, yeah, I mean, that's a complicated question though, right? Because I would rather pay, me personally, and this is not a commission opinion at all, me personally, I would rather pay the camp staff that we have. I was like, do I have to evacuate?
I thought that was the strangest shoe squeak that was coming off of you. And I was like, how you
What
can
in the
do
world?
that 3 times in a row?
It's like a cartoon.
It
It's like
really
a
was.
cartoon. So yes, I mean, ideally, we would like to update this every year and present it to you guys during the budget presentation. So hopefully, when we're in a better place next year in fiscal year '24, and we have revenue coming in from the new price increases for the weddings and things like that, I can come back in and say, we want $60,000 for Cove staff, full staff, everybody's being paid $26 an hour, something along those lines. What we're at right now, I just can't anticipate that.
Right, and a lot of these questions get answered on this page when you talk about revenue.
That's
So you can't even talk about it unless you
Okay,
bring
but
money
To your
in.
point, just to follow up, Mr. Chair, to your point, Frank, are we looking at whether the salary we're currently paying our caretakers is sufficient? Again, I'm not saying willy-nilly, let's give away town money, but what I am saying is, I'm seeing it in my place of business, everybody's seeing it, the great resignation, where the turnover is huge, people are leaving for the next, for the next highest dollar, things are opening up and they're saying, heck with this, I don't need to make this money, I don't need to put up with X, Y, or Z. And so I would just submit to you, and I guess it's sort of a rhetorical question, but, to the extent we want to retain good people that we've got, we may need to think about what we're doing currently to do that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I do agree with that. We're very lucky up there at the camp to have caretakers who, not only like what they're doing for a job, but they love the camp. We have situations where caretakers are working more volunteer hours than they are working paid hours. And that's just because of our budget, but they do it because they love the camp. They don't do it because they're getting paid, $27 an hour or something like that. They do it just because it is the camp. So, rhetorically, yes, we should be paying these people a lot more than we are right now. We just do not have the budget for it.
Okay, thank you.
So, on the next page, after the salary expenses, it comes into total camp expenses for fiscal year '23 and '24. I'm not gonna go through the whole line there, but, we have fiscal year '23, $94,500 is what we would like to use, for fiscal year '23 in our ideal budget. With fiscal year '24, seeing a 10% increase in cost and services, anticipated to be $103,950. Total camp expenses on a continued page would be assuming a 10% increase in cost and services. Cranberry Cove needs extensive work to bring it back to the natural form. CPC funds are being explored to provide updates to the cabins and the gatekeeper house, and the recreation budget needs to be expanded to meet the mission statement, on that page.
So I have a couple questions on this. I'm looking at utilities, and that's that's a huge portion, $30,000. What are we doing up at the camp, just me being, Mr. Environmental here, what are we doing up there to reduce our footprint? Because I know when I used to walk home, I would cut through Camp Kawani to get over to Woodman Terrace, and the AC would be running. No one's there at 10 o'clock at night, and we're running the AC. I get the whole argument of, well, if you keep it all at a solid temperature, you don't have those fluctuations. But realistically, it's Monday through Friday. Do we need to keep the lodge at, 60 degrees, when there's no rentals? I guess my question is, what are we doing to help bring down our utilities?
Yeah, I mean, so the utilities in the gas and electric in our current expenditure will go through kind of what is exactly there. In the utilities here, I also include contracted services as well. So that's services that we need for like the printer, for example, for, the floor getting redone and things like that. So it's not actually $30,000 in straight utilities like electric, natural gas, water, and things like that.
Yep.
Go ahead, Audrey.
No, you.
I like see your hand on the other side over here, and I'm like, I don't wanna let her speak too. So utilities it's not just gas, electric, and natural, and like water and things like that. Those are very expected budgets, like we know what we're gonna get with that. It's, mostly the contracted services is what we would like to have that at, and that would be things like, having an electrician come in and say, we need to fix this particular issue. That also goes into, building maintenance is legitimately just building maintenance, like, cabin updates, cove updates, things like that. So, we can explore different options to do with the camp and kind of make it more energy efficient. I don't know when the last time that had energy efficient, assessment done.
I do. It was done recently. Dory had somebody come up and go through like an energy audit, at the camp recently. So they did some, weather stripping and things like that. But to your point about the air conditioner, Matt, I just wanted to touch on that, is that's a training issue, and we are working with the caretakers. We started having quarterly meetings with them, and we're working on policies and procedures, and then just an overall caretaker handbook, that they can have. So that's really like a training issue, you know, when you have kids that are closing the camp, and we're putting in place more checklists, and end-of-shift checklists, making sure that all the lights are off and the air conditioners, you know, the heat or the AC set at a whatever temperature and that sort of thing. Also shutting the walk-in cooler off during the week when it's not used and things like that. So we are working towards that.
Perfect, thank you. Because I know that the Energy Committee was able to secure some grants to do the weather stripping and stuff like that. And that's one of the first steps that we do, is we weather strip the building before we start investing heavier money into whichever facility we're working with. But thank you, that's what I wanted to hear.
Awesome. So on the next page, it comes into total camp revenue. This is the fun part. Fiscal year '23 estimated camp revenue would be $373,250. A vast majority of that is weddings. Bar service is also included in that. There's also ceremonies and camping and things like that. Fiscal year '24, the expected camp revenue would be $372,000, a little bit lower than fiscal year '23. The reason for that is right now everybody has a COVID rush to get married, so we're expecting it to kind of level out in fiscal year '24 and come back to more of the standard amount of weddings that we would have in a standard year. On the next page, this was total camp revenue 23-24 continued. The rate increase was approved on 12/4/21 by the Board of Selectmen and then implemented. Fiscal year '23 has 34 weddings booked at the old rate, and the projections up here are based on 15 weddings booked at the new rate. In fiscal year '24, the projection is based off of 40 weddings being booked during the wedding season at the new rate. And obviously, just a point there, wedding revenue is the main source of income for Camp Kawani. I think that's a kind of a given. So, the next page after that, if anybody doesn't have any questions.
I guess my question for this is also, what other, I mean, this is relatively diverse for revenue, but I'm just wondering, has been any other discussion on how to even further diversify?
That's the next page, Mr. Dyer.
Oh, great.
Chairman Dyer, that is the next page. The next page says
perfect.
potential revenue increases for fiscal year '24 through '28. So, and these have not been, I'm just gonna preface this, these have not been approved by the Recreation Committee. These are something that I came up with on paper, and things like that. So if anybody here has any suggestions, please let me know. I'd be more than happy. Selling Cove passes to subsidize hired camp staff. That would increase our revenue rate over there, so it would come out of our salary line and put more into our, enterprise fund. Renting out campsites and cabins online. I know I spoke about that when I got appointed. That's something that we're gonna look into as well. Rolling increases for wedding, price, potentially 2 to 5% a year if we, at the approval of the Board of Selectmen, obviously. We won't want to be stuck in the situation that we've been left in the past 5 years, is where we had a rate that was from 2014 and everybody's just taking advantage of it. So having a rolling rate of 2%, 5% a year, would have us keep up with that flow until we kind of see a level projection of weddings. I'm still in love with the food truck rentals during the summer beach season. I still think it would be super cool to have flashback Franks down there at the beach and kids can run there and stuff like that. So, community theater, something that Audrey is looking for, bringing the plays back, collecting revenue off of those plays. And then recreational programming, obviously, is one of the big ones there that we want to get. We want to get a lot more programming in. The commission just approved Margaret Cameron Hickey's swim camp that she wanted to do, things like that. We just approved a Steam Up program for the camp as well. That's going to be running for a couple weekends as a pilot.
Kids doing one too, something up there?
The drama kids are there actively right now. If they're doing something,
Camp or something, I don't know.
yeah, I haven't heard about that personally, but it doesn't mean it hasn't been brought to our administrative assistant yet.
I had one quick question. Going back to food trucks, I know prior to the pandemic, there was discussion of maybe possibly renting out the kitchen to food trucks, because Hanson, although it's a pain in the butt to get to from outside of town,
Yep.
we're centrally located to Route 3, 24, 44, 30 minutes to the Cape, 30 minutes to Boston. Have we revisited that, or is that tied up in a certain?
I don't know anything about
We have not, so you're talking about more of a,
Commercial kitchen.
yeah, so the.
host kitchen,
Yeah, yeah, a host kitchen, kinda like how the church does it and the AA does it and everything like that, yeah, so we can definitely explore that option. I know that a lot of those food trucks would need access to the kitchen during the nighttime, specifically early in the morning as well, because that's kinda when their lunch is, so they'd have to be there, 3 or 4 in the morning, and then nobody would be there on site, so that'd be more of like an insurance thing on the campsite, and whether we can actually do that without a caretaker being there, and also obviously pending Board of Health approval. That's something that we can definitely look into, making it, I'm trying to think of the word that it's called for that, but,
Ms. Kevin?
Yeah, along those lines, Frank, I know pre-COVID, lots of ideas were being bantered about, but one of them was, potentially having cooking classes up there to use that, function, because it's a perfect place to cook, and then you can sit down in the dining room and have, eat what you've cooked. And people pay a lot of money for this. It's like an experience. It's not just a cooking class.
So Melissa Scartesi, who's a board member, she sent out a survey to the community for recreational ideas and programming, and she got a great response.
yeah, we got a lot of responses.
We haven't gone over what she got. The 3 of the members met this past weekend to discuss that and some programming and recreation ideas. Sheila, Carolyn, and Melissa, the 3 of them met on Sunday. So at our next meeting, that is something that we're going to be talking about, is the response from the town survey and, some of their recreational ideas too.
Good, we'd love to hear that.
And honestly, I was just about to say, I mean, I would be happy to forward it to Lisa so she can send it off to you guys so you can see the response to this. Responses were, we got a lot more than I expected to, and a lot of them were really good ideas. So, some of them were like the Cove and things like that, but there was a lot of good programs after that as well.
Frank, I would imagine that, recreational programming would include family camping weekend?
It does. So unfortunately, due to my time, I will not be able to plan that this year, but we will push to plan it for next year. It's just with all the stuff going on, I have not had time, so.
Yeah, I mean, I would have thought that would have got a page all by itself, because.
We will not make any,
That is so
we will not
awesome.
make any revenue off of that, and that's the whole point, is to not make revenue off of
You're
that. Just
correct.
kind of, and we would just have it here so the citizens of Hanson know that we have great camping, literally 5 minutes from your doorstep. And, it's a great place to be. So, I mean, we wouldn't make revenue on that, but I understand where you're going with that, so. Okay, so any more questions on potential revenue?
I have one quick question. I just flipped ahead just to make
Okay,
sure
go
I
ahead,
didn't
go
end up in
ahead,
the
go
same
ahead,
situation.
Okay, go ahead.
What are we doing for advertising? Because we have all these great ideas, renting out cabins. There's lots of folks in town that don't even think about renting out Camp Kawani. And, what are we gonna do to help advertise Camp Kawani?
So that's a good question. I probably should have thought about that and put that in here, about what we can do to advertise. I know right now for our weddings, we have a couple wedding sites that we use. One of them specifically is Wedding Knot, Wedding Wire, and then, yeah, there's a couple of them that we use to advertise our wedding rates. But, in terms of advertising the programs that we have at the camp, we mostly use Facebook. I know that there's sometimes we forward things off to the PTO. For example, the Steam Up program, just got an email today from the Indian Head principal saying, there's a program being run at Camp Kawani. So, the great thing is we have a lot of people who are part of the PTO, my wife included, at football programs and things like that, where they can kind of filter that off into advertising for kids. But the one area we're really lacking is the older population in Hanson. We don't really have a good way to advertise them.
What?
Work with the council on aging. Jim is our representative.
I was just using this blank page for family camping weekend.
Yeah, so the problem, so there's 2 problems with that. First problem is, we need programming that's specifically geared towards the older population within the Camp Kawani, and the other one is I actually have to talk to Jim. So that's the other problem that I have with that, so.
What, that you have to talk
Yeah,
to?
I have to tell you, I have to talk to Jim.
Can you put your hat back?
I'm just kidding. So, upcoming, sure.
Frank and I had a demo with CampSpot, which is an online reservation software for camping. And we had a great walkthrough with it. There's a lot of features that we would never need because, we're just however many cabins, 30, 40 cabins. But we might be able to use it as like a booking software somewhere, and it's completely free.
Yep.
It's totally free. They just, so there's no upfront cost, there's no setup cost, there's none of that. So, I know Frank was gonna have some meetings with the town accountant and things like that, because the money would filter through this site and how that would all work, but that is, they would advertise for us too.
How do they get paid? Is there a fee on
There's a
top
fee
of the-
associated with
Okay.
the actual.
Like Eventbrite
Yeah,
or
so
something.
we
Okay.
would charge, you know,
Yeah.
$60 for a campsite. They might take $2 off of that booking reservation that's there. And then the credit card processing might take another 1% or 1.25%, whatever it is. The problem is the credit card processing needs to go in a separate bank account and kind of filter from there. And the current way that we do it right now, if I'm not mistaken, is when we book a campsite, the person needs to come in with a check. We can only process that check after they actually stayed there, and they have to give us a security deposit check on top of the check that they actually have. This would be like they pay on the site and that's it. Like it would be in our bank account the next day essentially after they confirm their payment and things like that. So I'm not sure, you know, for a normal, you know, a business run campsite, that's easy, but for a municipality, I'm not sure exactly how that works. So, but we haven't looked into that option as well, so.
So with that being said, because that drove me up the wall, was, oh, you wanna rent a cabin? Great, it's gonna be $60 a night, like you said, but you get the next night free, or whatever the deal is. But then you also have to put down a security deposit of $200. And it was just like, wait, what do you mean? And then it can only be by check.
Correct.
So is there any specific motions that you would like from the Board of Selectmen at this time to help? Or you can come back to us. You can come back to us.
I will
and-
respectfully come back to you guys.
Okay.
Next Tuesday when I'm gonna be here probably, no, I'm just kidding. I'll come back to you guys with that, because right now, I mean, we'll have to discuss at the Recreation Committee how we wanna handle that. Me and Audrey can't make that decision, obviously unilaterally, but I would love to put that on the agenda for a future, non-hectic time, so we can figure that out, because the process right now is absolutely absurd. So, that being said, now I'm copying you, Matt. Now, I do it at the meetings too. I'm like, that being said, now we'll move on. So upcoming projects for fiscal year 23-24. We have obviously the Cove renovation, bringing the Cove back to its natural form. The Gatekeeper's House, it's on the historic register. We have to maintain that building, which we're exploring use of CPC funds. Mr. Dyer, Chairman Dyer, sorry.
With the Gatekeeper's House, I said this prior, many moons ago, there's a program within DCR called Curator Partnerships, where you can go on DCR and look it up, but basically it's a public-private partnership where you have someone partner up with you, they fix up the building to your specifications, and, you know, you make a deal, whatever that is, like they get to live in it for XYZ, but they pay all the renovations. So that might be an avenue to go on this one. I know that we have CPC funds and they're great, we can use them for this, but I just wanted to kind of throw that out there as well, with the new commission.
Yeah, I mean, that's also an
Do
option.
you see this happening in municipalities, Matt? Because, you know, I don't know if that's like considered like a barter thing where we're not allowed to do that, or, you know, what council would think of something like that?
My assumption would be if the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is doing it,
Yeah.
I would assume Hanson should be able to do it, because they've done it with the fort over in Hingham. They do it right now with F. Gilbert Hills and one of the houses that are on the ponds. So they do this all throughout the Commonwealth, so I would assume if the Commonwealth is doing it, the municipalities should be able to do it as well.
Through you, what is the objective though? I thought the Gatekeeper's House, we wanted to use as like an area for the bride to get ready. I don't know, there's been enough, are we sure what we want the Gatekeeper's House for, or?
Audrey's very sure, but I mean,
very sure.
yeah, I mean, Audrey definitely has plans for it, but I mean, we have to maintain that structure. I mean, we can't not, it's a historic structure, we have to maintain it, I believe.
Oh, I'm not suggesting that, no, I'm not suggesting that.
I'll live in
Yeah.
it if I need
Yeah.
to, so.
It needs work for anybody to even use it at all, regardless of what we use it for. My goal would be to have it as like a mini museum in the office for the administrative
Like a little
assistant.
Camp Kalani mini museum?
Exactly, like,
Yeah.
Camp Cool, like a little historic, some, you know, photo albums, some of the play pictures, some pictures. And then that dining area, I would like to see that be the AA office. And then the kitchen be like, a half bath with a little kitchenette. The upstairs, there's 3 bedrooms up there, and I would like to see, them used for the lifeguards, like as a changing, there's a full bathroom up there, it's like a changing room, maybe some lockers for them to keep their things in. Same for the caretakers, it could be like a hub for them to just lock their stuff up. And then we wouldn't have to open the lodge every single day, which would save on energy, and we would be able to use the office as it is now as a full bride's room, for, weddings, so that there's not office equipment in there while the brides are doing their thing too. So that's my vision.
That sounds like a
Yeah.
wonderful vision.
And then the last point on here before we get to the actual, numbers is cabin renovations. Obviously the cabins are in need of repair from winter storms, and, the funding would allow us to renovate those and upkeep them, other than before they get to the condition that they're in right now. So, the next Excel sheet, and there's a lot of numbers here, and it's a lot to digest, so I'm not gonna go through each individual, line item that we have there. I'll just kind of go over the totals for what we have. So the first column is the account descriptions. Second one is the estimated 2022 expenditure that we're expected to spend when it comes to June 30th of this year. 23 is the departmental request. That's if we had everything we wanted. That is $125,000 in free cash that would be injected into the camp. That's not what we're suggesting. That was the original departmental request. Then we have a couple different scenarios. We have fiscal year 23 without any free cash. We have fiscal year 23 with 50,000. Fiscal year 23 with 60,000, and excuse the typo, where it says 75 recommended below the 60. And then fiscal year 23 with $75,000 worth of free cash. And this is 4 different scenarios that I brought in front of the Recreation Committee at the last meeting. The likely scenario that we came up with was the $50,000 worth of free cash. I'm sorry, the $60,000 worth of free cash. With that number, we would have $157,000 worth of salaries and wages. That would include one of the 2 positions, facility manager or event coordinator, $80,000 for Cove, for camp staff, not Cove staff, and then $55,000 for the administrative assistant. And then under that, in operating expenses, we would have a total of $95,500 that goes through. Just want to point out on this particular line, $26,000 worth of building repairs, and then $13,000 worth of Cove expenses, and then $7,000 worth of special events. And the special events line would give us enough money to do the Spooktacular without having, the Recreation Committee members having to put out money and then wait for reimbursement. That'd give us kind of a starting fund to do recreation at the camp that we can sponsor, So, and that total, with the $31,000 of indirect costs would bring our total budget to $284,000 in fiscal year 23. We originally had a $350,000 or $349,000 departmental request. We cut that down in any way that we possibly could, obviously, we're in a tough financial situation this year, so we cut that down as much as we could. We had lines in there, if we got nothing at all. If we got nothing at all, the camp would essentially, it'd be run the same way that it's ran right now, and not in a good state come next year. With the $60,000 or $50,000 worth of free cash, we're in a lot better place to take advantage of the price increases that we just put back in December. It would give us a lot more room, a lot more runway, and a lot more leeway to get there.
So my question for you, Mr. Malisi, is, with your projection without free cash, would you have enough money to fund, would you have enough money to fund your staff to uphold all the obligations that we've already committed to, such as weddings?
Dealing with what we're currently dealing with in our current fiscal year 22 budget, I would say no. I would say we'd be short. We'd be short, we'd be in the same position we're in right now, essentially is what we would be. Without the free cash, we'd be in the same position that we're in right now. We would definitely be short.
So, my follow-up question for that is, what is the minimum amount of money that you need to make sure that you can properly staff Camp Kiwanee to uphold the obligations that the town has made?
$60,000.
That's the minimum.
That's the minimum.
I think so,
So I guess my question is, I'm just talking about staff. I don't want to
Okay,
do
for
do
staff?
special projects
Okay.
or whatever. I
For-
want to
for
make sure that we have just the right amount of staff to get us through this year, and go from there.
that number would have to be, I would say 140 in the staff number, in order for us to get there.
So how much free cash would you need from us?
That would be $20,000.
20,000?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
But, so, let me just make that clear, though, like that, just because we can do it at that price doesn't mean we should, right? So like, here's the deal, like, you know, during fiscal year 22, or, I'm sorry, fiscal year 21, when we had no events whatsoever, we could essentially, I'm not gonna say afford it, but we could afford to pay nothing, we could cut the hours back. Having us try to run a camp at that size with the 64 acres that we have with all the weddings at, non-wedding season budget, when we have to be fully staffed for events, and we're fully booked essentially for fiscal year 23 at this point, with the exception of a couple dates, it's not feasible. I mean, you just can't do it.
Ms. Flanagan?
We have 56 weddings this year at Camp Quaney. So that's the most we've had in a long, long, long time. A lot of these are reschedules from the year of COVID. We have to pay camp staff to be there. It's a minimum of 5 employees just for the function, let alone everything that goes into leading up to the function. I don't think anybody fully appreciates how much work goes into a wedding up there until they've done it, and I've done plenty of them. There is a lot of work. It is an all-week event of caretakers blowing leaves, blowing the roof off, touching up paint, cleaning the floors, you know, cleaning the building. It's a huge building. And we've upped our rate, so there, you know, I mean, we show well, you know, on wedding day. There are 2 caretakers that are there just for the event, 2 to 3 hours before the event comes, to set the tables up, to set the chairs up, to meet the caterers, to bring in all, you know, there's a lot of orchestrating that goes along, that we're responsible for. Then there's a middle caretaker, because there's a policy that, you know, the camp cannot be unstaffed at any time. So there is somebody that is sitting in the office basically on their phone for a few hours until the other caretakers come in at the end for the closing. And there's a lot, again, that goes into a closing because you're flipping it for the next day. So it's very time consuming for the caretakers to be there. So I think Frank is right with the 50 or the 60. I still don't even think the 20,000 would cut it. No. Based on the number of weddings we had. If this was a normal year, we had 35, 40 weddings, probably. But we have 56 weddings this year, this summer.
I'm projecting, I'm sorry, Ms. Kemet, I'm projecting that $20,000 that we would need just for salaries based on the current situation that we're in right now. And how much we need at this point to get us through the end of the fiscal year, because the problem is we have contractual obligations to rent out the hall to people who've already put their deposit down. We can't not have that happen, right? So we have to pay the caretakers for it. At the next agenda, meeting for the Recreation Committee, the first item that's gonna be there, and the big talking point of the night, if anybody wants to tune in, is what, Camp Quaney, shutdown's gonna look like. Because what we're seriously looking at a shutdown at the camp. Then that shutdown would be something like, you know, Dory's hours would get cut back, Renee's hours would be essentially gone, facilities caretakers would be gone, event caretakers would be there just for events. That's it. That's all they would.
That's if you get no free cash?
And so that's another discussion about funding that we need for this year, because the budget that we had for this year with our salaries and wages and operating expenses was set so low last year. That's another discussion that I'll be happy to go into. Essentially, last year, the previous town administrator, due to the override budget, we set our budget, we gave him a number of around $230,000, something along those lines. He asked to cut it by $100,000. We did. We obliged to 131. He said it would make the override seem more palatable, which I would imagine it did. And then our budget was set to $130,000.
So,
Mr. Weeks.
yeah, so I think you hit on something that I guess I had not focused on until you said it tonight, Audrey, which is we recognized income in past years, but now we've got to pay the labor to execute those functions this year. So it's a bit of an odd duck. It isn't something that we necessarily have, dealt with, certainly not in the volume that we're dealing with. And I think that really needs to be taken into consideration by us and by FinCom, because we've got obligations, to carry these weddings off. This is a reputational issue. We can't have people, going on and complaining that, we didn't have sufficient coverage, we didn't take care of, the wedding. I mean, people really focus on reviews for this, and so far, I think we've got a pretty stellar reputation, thanks to all of the devoted people and yourselves. But I think that that's an important, an important point, that we've got this little oddity this year.
And something even just as important as the weddings and having, I mean, we're charged, this board and then the commission as well is charged with maintaining this historic camp, right? So, I mean, like, if that's something that we're taking seriously and we really want to take that, maintaining this camp seriously, then we need to not cut our budget in half, and essentially make us run on peanuts. That if I'm just saying, and this is my opinion, not anybody else's, but if the town's gonna take care of the camp, the town needs to take care of the camp. You can't not take care of it, throw it off like the transfer station or something like that. This is 64 acres of property that needs to be maintained or else it's just gonna dilapidate. It's made out of wood. 20 years is the life expectancy, I'll give a 2x4, right? So, especially if it's weathered, so.
I'm sorry, we're also, in years past with maintaining the buildings, we've been lucky enough to have a lot of volunteers and, staff that were qualified to do that. But since I've been back on the board, our hands are tied. We can't do any of that anymore. Our building inspector won't allow us. We've got a very qualified caretaker who's willing to rebuild a cabin for us, and our building inspector told us he couldn't because he's not a contracted, he's not a licensed contractor. So there are a lot of things that, we could do in the past, or whether we were supposed to or not, I don't really know, but, we're really forced to spend more money to upkeep the camp because we have to go with licensed contractors and things like that. We're not allowed to make any sorts of renovations.
I'm sure that's an insurance issue.
I'm sure it is, but it's a rise in cost too,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have caretakers up there who happily want to rebuild that cabin just because it's an experience that they have, right? Like, they built that cabin in Camp Kawani. It would cost us materials and the labor for that, but instead we have to bring in a contractor that doesn't really care about that particular cabin. It's gonna charge us $50,000 for it when it could have been done for 30, right? I mean, that's a legality, like you said, insurance issue, but, we got to this particular point, and I'm just gonna touch on this fiscal year 22's expenditures, because there's been some talk around that, our budget has been, how do I say it? Not managed properly, mismanaged. If somebody can point to me in any direction where any of our current expenditures have been mismanaged, please bring it to me. I would love to know, because we don't have money to mismanage money right now. I mean, we're literally paying at this current moment, we're taking money out of our AA salary to pay the caretakers. That's how little money we have. And then, Cove expenses, we spent $1,700 in Cove expenses in fiscal year 22. That was tarps for the Hornets that we got out there, right? Like, I mean, like, that's nothing. That's nothing. So,
Mr. Malisi, I just wanted to have the board, ask their questions, and then I think we have to move on.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Weeks?
Thank you. First of all, this is great, especially for first-time Google. This is great. It really is. It's great.
first time Google.
I appreciate this. So you were saying, just to kind of get through this year, I agree that $50,000 to $60,000 is probably the real number, but I appreciate you trying to scrape by with the bare minimum. It's just testament to the commission and trying to make things happen out of nothing. But you said $20,000 to just get by through the end of the year.
That's just with salary, yep.
Yep. And you're looking on the first page, it looks like your projections are, you're looking for a $31,000 surplus. So does that mean with the extra $20,000, you really need about an extra $50,000 to be able to pull it off? If I'm reading this right?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that for me?
So you have, FY '22 expenses. You have
Yep.
the salaries of the 91.8.
Yep.
Operating expenses of the 67, so that comes to about 152.5. Projected revenue, 184, which leaves you with a 31.8 surplus, or profit, I guess, based off of these numbers here. But you're gonna need an additional 20,000 to be able to pull it off, so you're really looking for,
I believe there's a stipulation when we get money for an event, we can't use it right away. It's not like a regular business, so if we book a wedding in, all the month of June, if we have 8 weddings, my understanding is we can't take that money that we have for those weddings and just put it right directly back into our expenses and revenues and things like that. So whether that might be our projected revenue that we make that year, I don't think technically we can use it to pay our staff or our employees like a regular business can.
Okay.
So, while there may be a $30,000, surplus in revenue that's there, that doesn't help us this year, essentially. It will help us come,
Yeah.
I believe, October's town meeting, if I'm not mistaken,
Okay.
so.
So regardless of this number, you're still gonna probably fall, at minimum, about $20,000 shy, which is just like keeping the doors open? Because you were talking about FY '22 when you were asked that question, I'm assuming, right?
No, I was asked about, fiscal year '23 with the $20,000 worth of free cash in
So-
salaries.
With that, you have total camp revenue FY '23-24, just weddings alone bringing in 324.5.
Correct.
So that should leave, and that, I just looked at that number, I didn't take the 373,250 into account. So just weddings alone, you're looking at, based off of all of your projections here, in this 60,000 column, you're still looking at about, taking in about $40,000 more than your expenses, just in weddings.
We are not allowed to, that's a projected budget, right? That's based on what's booked, that's not what we've received. So from how I understand it, what Todd gives us as a budget is what we have.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
can't, so even though we have 56 weddings booked, let's say,
You might have cancellations or whatever,
there'll be
yeah.
cancellations, they haven't paid in full, they've only put their deposit down, maybe they haven't put a deposit down, I don't know. But from how I understand it, we can only use a budget for for the last page here that Frank did, based on what the number that Todd gives us.
Yeah, when Todd gives us the budget for town meeting, which is actually this paper right here that I have, it was projected that our budget next year would be $224,000 would be the Camp Quaney budget, and how much we would bring in, and that was where our budget would be set at. And that's where our budget would be set, was the $224,000. So while we may bring in, if we do bring in full bookings of weddings next year, and we have a surplus, then we wouldn't need to, number one, it would be reflected in next year's fiscal year '24's budget as being, 300 and something $1,000. It'll also just go over to the next year, so we have a cushion there to do that.
Yeah.
This budget scenario right here is assuming that this is all we have to spend on that particular.
Yeah, I'm looking at this, I'm not looking at this as you presenting us a budget right here. I'm looking at this as a business plan with, this is what realistically your expenses are going to be. This is what you're projecting gonna be bringing in, again, in a perfect world. It's easier, I think, to ask the town for $60,000 if you're confident that you're gonna be able to do this business plan based off of these projected expenses and these projected revenues, because just off weddings alone, if the town invests $60,000 essentially in seed money, because you're doing a really good job of presenting a solid business plan here, 40,000 out of the 60,000 the town's investing in that seed money is coming directly from weddings in a perfect world. Again, I didn't include bar service at $30,000. I didn't include any of that other stuff. So you still have another 30,000. You basically have $70,000 in a perfect world in this budget. I think the town would be much more likely to be able to, in FinCom and anybody else in charge of free cash and money, to be able to say, okay, well, it looks like you're gonna be bringing in about $70,000. It looks like you have a great ideas to bring that money in. It makes sense to fund that because due to COVID, I mean, you have the numbers right here. COVID cost us $160,000 between the 87,000 in FY '19 and FY '21, the tune of 80,000 again, so about $167,000 was lost. It makes sense to go through a rebuilding period to say that we have a solid plan, we know where our expenses are gonna be, we know what the town needs to invest to be able to get the camp up and running, and clearly you two, representative of your commission, know what you're doing. So I guess it's just a long-winded way of saying, it looks like $60,000 makes sense to keep the camp going the way we need it to, and it's a smart investment for the town to be able to do that, because you've shown in the numbers that you can actually make that money back, plus some if we need to.
Yeah, and that's why we're requesting that number, because, you know, we could put I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I know we wanna go with it, so I'll just leave it at this, right? So the $20,000, or the budget that we have on the 60,000 column row, I'd be very, surprised if we came back next year asking the town for money with that, if we booked the weddings that we wanted. The whole point of us is to be self-sufficient up there at Camp Quaney, because we can be self-sufficient, so.
To me, that's the point, because if you undersell yourself by asking for $20,000 and it's gonna prevent us from getting the 70 to keep it self-sufficient, it doesn't make sense to ask for 20, although I appreciate you both doing that. Ask for the 60 if you need the 60, because that's gonna get us self-sufficient. If we just invest one more year, we can do that. It's an easier sell to me.
Yeah, 60 is the number that we would like at the Recreation Committee. We can take it from there, once we have the budget, we will take it from there. I think this commission has shown that we're more than willing to put in the effort and the time and to do things like this, so.
Well, this just proves it.
Yeah, so.
This proves it. 4 years I've been on the board.
Yeah,
In 4 years, I've been asking for this.
yeah. Well, we're happy to
And
present it
we
to
have
you.
not gotten to this point. Is there any questions on this side of the table?
Just one, Mr. Chair. Frank, so, and I want to follow up with Joe's point, but, so for fiscal '23, you have total revenue of $373,000, you have expenses at $95,000, and salary at $200,000. So that leaves a difference of a profit or an income of $78,000. So basically, to follow up what Joe's saying is, your plan, if this works out, is not to ask the town for money next year.
I think
There'd be
that's
no
a
need
very
to.
important point to
Right.
make,
I
that it's an
like,
investment.
And to me, the $78,000 gives you guys the opportunity to start those projects that you want to
Yes.
start on, because you have the money now.
Yeah, I just want to make it clear, like, I don't think people understand how uncomfortable it is to ask your neighbor for money for things that you're working on, right? Like, I don't like getting up at town meeting and asking for $70,000 in free cash, right? Because it comes from a police car, it comes from a sander, it comes from different places, right? So it comes from an assistant in the Board of Selectmen office, something like that. But if we didn't need it, I wouldn't be here asking for it. That's as simple as it is. I'm not gonna,
I think
There's
the
no
ask this,
sugarcoating it.
the ask this year is different though, because you all, every year you have to ask for money, and it's always for a noble reason. The difference is that instead of playing catch-up, you're asking for proactive money, seed money, that the town's gonna invest in, not just supplement. And I think it's important to make that distinction, because you're gonna actively do something that's gonna bring in a larger profit.
Yep.
And I think it's important.
That's
I just-
exactly
I
what
didn't mean
it
to
is.
take your point.
and if next year we're in the same position, hold me to it. So.
And then I guess my last statement, and then I'm gonna close this part out on our agenda, is, do you guys have plans to meet with the FinCom and present what you just presented us?
I do not have plans to be on their agenda. I know we were on their agenda back in December, going over some, the rates that we were presenting and things like that. I know they're meeting tonight. I'll happily go up there and drop off a copy of this to them so they can see it.
I think that might.
You know what, even better, if they're interested in it, I'll meet with them and present the same budget plan that we have right there.
I think that'd be
Makes
really
sense.
helpful, just because they just look at a number, not to say they don't do their homework, but they just see a number on the request form.
Yep.
And they don't see what, beyond that number, like you have in your plan.
I will happily go to FinCom and present this budget plan to them, so.
I think the key is what Mr. Weeks said, which is, the pitch is, it's an investment. We get it, but, because we realized income in prior years, and we've got to pay it out this year, and we've got a business plan for how we're going to get back on our feet. This is a one-time thing, and we plan on being self-sufficient. And I think that will make a big difference in the response.
I hope it does. I mean, yeah, I hope it does. We're working our asses off up there at the commission and the caretakers to make sure that we're not in this position again, so.
Ms. Green?
If I may. So the sand wasp issue, if you get those tarps out that the camp purchased last year early, and hinder them from settling in, you might be able to salvage those days where we have those 90-degree heat days. Take the tarps off, there shouldn't be any wasps, because it hinders them from being able to dig. And then if they do get in there, it hinders them to be able to get out and gather their food. So I did all the research last year and came up with the tarps
So,
issue, on how to get rid of them.
I'm meeting with, I have a call with the conservation agent, Frank, Doctor, I can't pronounce his last name. About potentially, mixing or rototilling or moving the sand on the beach, and then also Pembroke has this, I asked Dory to reach out to Pembroke to see how they have dealt with this issue in the past, to see if they have, because they have this mesh on their beaches.
Yep.
Looks like walkways, but it's actually, I think it might be for that particular reason, because they have a beach that's very similar to the Cranberry Cove, right over on, Matakeesit Street, I believe. So, Wampatuck, thank you, yes, so Wampatuck Street, so, that's our Cove priority this year, is to make sure that people can actually get to the Cove, so.
It's just an
Thank you.
inexpensive way to deal with them now.
Yeah, exactly, no, I appreciate that, thank you, Lisa.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I
Very
really
welcome.
appreciate you
Thanks,
guys
Frank.
doing all the hard work and coming in.
That was great, thank you.
The next item on the agenda is to reopen the warrant. Ms. Green.
Yes, so Mr. Chair, members of the board, so you had, closed the warrant last week. We discovered that there were 2 articles that needed to be on the warrant. One was the citizens petition that is required to be on the warrant. It was fully typed out, but for some reason, it was at the very end of the document, and when we had printed out the document, it didn't get included. And then I discovered it afterwards, so I'm asking to open the warrant. And the second item, the second article, I had sent it to town council to get some wording, and they had returned it to me after they closed the warrant. So I'm asking to open the warrant to add those 2 articles.
Great, and can you just give us a synopsis on the citizens petitions?
So the citizens petition, it has to do with, let me just find which number it is. It has to do with the recall, and let me just find the wording on it.
Do we have a copy of this in our packets?
It should be in the pad, yes. I just have to find out which article it is. Let's see. We also have the very long marijuana bylaws in here too, so. All right, so it's actually, it's article number 50. To see if the town will vote the proposed initiative petition to amend the current recall, chapter 93 of the Act of 2019 as follows, or take any other action relative thereto. So be it enacted by the Senate and the House of Representatives and by the authority of the same as follows, that section 2 of chapter 93 of the Acts of 2019 be amended as follows by adding the following to section 2. And, so I, which is what they have pointed out here, any holder of elected office in the town of Hanson may also be recalled, removed from the office they hold by the qualified voters of the town who shall have the right to establish their own grounds for recalling an elected public official, on which the petition shall be based. A right that they once had and exercised when warranted in 1982. Section J, the petition for the recall must be signed by at least 300 qualified voters, and that the name of the officer whose recall is sought, along with the statement of the grounds for recall on which the petition is based. It shall require a minimum of 50 qualified voters for each precinct, and all signatures must be certified by the Board of Registrars before proceeding to the next step in the recall procedure. And then section K, the recall procedure shall then continue in a similar manner as currently stated under Part B through G of section 2 of the current recall law. So this is with town council, just to review, whether this can change an act, by Senate and the House of Representatives. So, it is with town council to review, but as a citizen's petition, it did need to be added into the article, the warrant.
So, quick question, is this to amend what, the recall petition from last fall?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Because-
Yeah.
I guess what I'm asking is, I know last fall we had the recall, petition, I believe it was a petition, if I'm not mistaken. And then with that petition, how it was written out, it had several conflicts with inside it. So it's kind of a invalid article. So is this?
Yeah.
Is this the correction of that?
It could be, because it says it's a petition to amend the current recall.
Okay.
So it very well could be what, on a citizen's petition, you can't change any of the language. You can work with the person that's submitting the petition, to get the intent, but you can't really change the language. So
And- okay.
it might be a question for town meeting floor
Okay.
on what the intent is.
And then I guess my last question for this article is on the warrant, it says proposed by the Board of Selectmen. Should that say, citizens petition?
I can double check into that.
I think
Yes.
that would be great, because,
Definitely.
Yep, it's
Citizen
not
petition
being
for the Board of
proposed, yes.
Okay.
right.
And,
Mr. Weeks?
thank you, through you. The only question I have is just, does it have the appropriate number of signatures? Because as long as it has the signatures, then I don't,
Yes, so the
Yeah.
town clerk does certify that the citizen's petition has the appropriate number of signatures.
Okay,
So
okay.
this did have the appropriate number of signatures, yes.
And then you said there was 2 citizens petitions, or just one?
Just this one.
Okay.
And the second article that needed to be on is article number 49, just above it. And this basically is an article to authorize the Board of Selectmen, because I don't know if you remember back in October, meeting 19, the board voted to allow me to move forward with an RFP for leasing of the light control buildings and a portion of that property. So this article here would allow the town, the Board of Selectmen, to enter into a lease if we did have a successful RFP. And the lease for the maximum number of years, you could go between 20 and 25 number of years. That is blank, so I could just get from the selectmen what they'd like to see there. But this just allows the selectmen to enter into the long-term lease, if we were to have a successful RFP for a lease of the property.
All right. So with that being said, I guess I'm looking for a motion to open, and one last thing, Ms. Green. Article 9, it's the generator for the transfer station. Did the Board of Health come back and propose that, or is that something that we should strip while we have the the warrant open?
So, no, the Board of Health actually, really didn't propose it. I mean, they'd like to have a generator out there, but they didn't come with an article to propose it. I think the article was mainly proposed by the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, but at the last meeting, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, at the last meeting, and actually in the meeting prior to that, 2 meetings now, I've explained that I had reached out to the chair of the Board of Health. He was supportive of it, and then, but I thought that it should come from the Board of Health and not from the Selectmen. So I asked to have it removed from us and for you guys to connect with the Board of Health to ask if they wanted to propose it. Now, since that time, I've heard that Mr. Baker might have come up with a more cost-effective solution, which is that there is a generator up at McQuon School that might be able to be repurposed for the transfer station.
Yes.
And I don't know if that requires some type of vote or not, or if they, clearly there'll be some expenses to move it and to connect it and do all that type of stuff.
Yes. So we're actually waiting for that quote. He did meet with 2 of the generator companies up at the McQuon to look at the generator, to assess the condition of the generator, and then went out to the transfer station to look at that area. So we are waiting on the quote. I did talk with the health agent about this possibility. He seemed kind of, more preferred to get a new generator. Wasn't sure if this generator would serve the purpose. But when you look at what we'd be using the generator for, it would mainly be for a power outage that may last maybe an hour or a few hours, and not for a very long-term power outage, which hopefully, I mean, we would really only see a long-term power outage in the winter, possibly, or with what happened in October. But mostly with the transfer station, this particular generator would take care of like a few hours worth, so that they could be open if they had to. And mainly in the summertime, because that's when people would want to get rid of food that it has spoiled. In the wintertime, you can kind of put it outside, and it would freeze and not smell. So mainly, the summertime is really what we want to focus on. So I am waiting on that, and I will, we'll get that taken off.
All right, you gonna take that off?
Motion to reopen the warrant.
All right,
Second.
moved, seconded, all in favor? 5-0. All right, I'm looking for a motion to place the two articles that, Ms. Green had specified earlier,
So
and to
moved.
remove Article 9.
Second.
Moved, seconded,
Just one other thing through you, Mr. Chair,
Yep.
to Ms. Green. Ms. Green, what about the sleeper property, situation? Is that something, were you able to put something in there for that?
I forwarded the article, from the prior town meeting that authorized the sleeper property to town council. I have not heard back from them yet.
Okay, so
I don't know what kind of language we want to put in this.
yeah, okay, so did you want to provide a brief update to the rest of the board so you guys will remember the sleeper property was a property that, Mr. Clemens, as the conservation, chair, had been working with, community preservation and with me to get, it's that little piece of property right near, Camp Kawani and back to Smitty's Walk, you know where it is. The article that was submitted, I believe it was in 2019, was a $200,000 grant, land grant, LAND, all caps, from the state, with, I don't know what the amount was from the town, but it was very small, and it was from CPC. What's happened is we've run into a title issue. This land has been handed down from generation to generation to generation in the sleeper family, and there's some cloudy titles, there's some questions, and we've had town council working on it, they've had their council working on it. It was supposed to go to land court, our town assessor has worked on it. Anyway, this is a long-winded way of saying quite a few resources have been working on it. But because it is such an old piece of property and things just weren't ticked and tied the way that they should have been, we may go past the deadline by which we need to effectuate the purchase of this property with the state. We were able to get a year's extension last year because of COVID. We were able to say we had COVID, there were issues. But we had a call with the state agency that does the grant this week with Kate Theodoff, our town council, and Lisa, and Lee Gamache and myself, to talk about what options would the state allow. And one of the, there's some options, but they would all require us, in case we do not meet this deadline, we would have to reapply for the grant, and we'd need to put another article in here. They can't, of course, assure us that we would get the grant. It is a competitive grant cycle, but that said, it is a piece of property the state's very interested in. They've already demonstrated that they're interested in it. The trustees of the reservation have already toured the property with Mr. Clemens and have indicated that they would be willing to be the stewards and be the, hold the conservation deed restriction and oversee that. They're very excited about it too. The article, if we put it in, would be similar to what the article was originally, which is the CPC money would only be used to the extent we find out we're given that grant. So it would be no additional money out of the taxpayers. You know, we're not gonna take it out of free cash or anything like that. It would be CPC money and then the land grant. But in order to do that, we may have to put an article in here, which is why I'm explaining all of this to you. And we just found that out this week.
Okay, so I'll amend my motion then. There was a move and seconded, so I'll amend my or, well, I can't even amend. I'm looking for a motion to be, well, actually, how about we just vote on the initial motion of adding the two articles, removing Article 9. So moved and seconded, all in favor?
Discussion on that, real quick.
Yep.
I think the date is wrong. This goes back, 2 boards ago.
Hold on, the date is wrong on what?
Article, 50, where it says 82 to 2019.
Okay.
I believe it was changed in 2017, October of 2017.
It was Mr. McGann, as he left office, that was,
So it was,
yeah.
then it was May of 2018. It was one or the other. I'm not sure how important the date is, but it's the wrong date.
Okay,
You and Joe weren't here yet. That's why I
Right,
said it was
right.
2 boards ago. Laura, yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
though, to Mr. Hickey, I'm wondering, though, it had to go to legislature, and the way I'm reading this is, yes, it was the 2017 town meeting, but it may have taken until
That long.
2019 to get through.
Okay.
I don't know that, though, but I assume town council's gonna look at that.
Yes. we have
so
it.
the motion passed at 5-0, that's something to look
Yeah.
into. Then Ms. Kemet, I think you have a motion in mind for, the sleeper property.
Yeah, to put I guess I need to say a placeholder for the sleeper property, because we really we won't know, until a couple of weeks from now, whether we're gonna be able to resolve that issue and pull it over the line by the end of this fiscal year. And if we are able to, then it's no harm, no foul. If we're not able to, then we're gonna need to have that article in here.
All right, so I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? 5-0. I'm looking for a motion to close, the warrant.
So moved.
Moved,
Second.
seconded, all in favor?
I'm sorry.
Discussion.
I got one too.
Okay, sorry.
Lisa, I know, that, Ms. Sloan had expressed, a concern about us having warrant articles in here that were tied to capital, requests, particularly given our current fiscal state. And I also know we have not gotten a capital improvement matrix, which we should be getting, before we put items in the town warrant that are capital expenses. And I'm wondering, were you able to do any work on that front with this warrant? Or is that something we'll do as we vote to support or?
Yes, so in the warrant that you have today, there were 3 items that were submitted by Highway that were withdrawn, that are now out of the capital. I did send an email out asking all departments to cut expenses and things like that, and Highway and Veterans were the only 2 that I heard from. That's why there are still some items with capital that are in bold, because, you know, there's still an ultimate of the board to either recommend or not recommend these, and then what the finance committee is going to either recommend or not recommend. And I think you'll notice that there's quite a few articles that are school-related, and all of the capital items that are school-related are actually in our current assessment.
Okay.
But they're also still in bold. Other than that, some of the other capital, like the highway capital, they withdrew 3 of their capital requests, so there's only 2 capital items outside of the grading of the private roads. And there's 2 for, actually, conservation's not really capital, that is, they're asking for money for, one of the trails. So that's not really a capital one, but I think you'll see that most of the other capital, has been taken out.
Okay,
And
good.
this is changing on a daily basis, so what you have in front of you here, was basically completed and run probably 2 hours before the meeting. As Todd updated the budget, that's what we have on the top. We have his, sheet that shows where we are right now with deficit, and then the Excel spreadsheet that goes through all the different budgets. Again, that was updated probably 2 hours prior to this meeting, based on all the new developments.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Weeks?
Laura beat me on the draw again. I was
All
gonna
right,
ask about the capital expenses. So just so we know, I mean, I'm sure everybody knows this, but can't have a warrant, or you can't have a warrant without a capital plan approved by the capital improvement committee with all of the expenses $35,000 or over, especially if if the capital improvement committee is granted any type of capital funding. Just wanna make sure we don't get held up on a technicality, because it's gonna, May's gonna be here before we know it, so.
And have we heard from capital improvement?
They have reached out to the departments to ask for
Okay, so
their
they're
capital.
working.
They're working, they
Okay,
got a
great.
very late start, they're working, and we're working diligently every day, because we know, I mean, the clock is ticking on us.
Great, so I have a motion, a second to close, all in favor? 5-0. Thank you. Next thing on the agenda is ARPA funds update, Ms. Green.
Yes, so, there has not been any new, updates as far as any new legislation, on the ARPA. We were hoping that to see whether, so they're still working things out in the legislature as far as, how they want to proceed with things. So right now, we're getting money from the Treasury, and then we're getting money from the county. We received money from the Treasury. We received $517,000 from the Treasury. We have to report on our own what we spend that money on for the Treasury, so it's still basically sitting there. $514,000 is allotted to us by the county, but that's reimbursable, similar to the CARES Act. So we actually have to spend the money and then submit for reimbursement to the county, and that's $514,000, and then they take care of all of the reporting. As far as projects are concerned, we did talk about a number of different projects that we wanted to look at. Getting pricing for the projects has to happen. So the McQuan, for the demolition for that, to find out how much it's going to be, we have to bid that out, which requires an RFP. As far as health or water and sewer, again, there are different things that we have to bid out, to get pricing on it. So ARPA right now is at a standstill until we can get some of these pricing in and know what direction we want to go for the projects. And again, that money is allotted to us, and it's just kind of sitting there right now, until we have a direction of what we want to spend it on exactly. So that's where we are with ARPA. There's no new legislation as of yet that I can report on, or even what other towns are doing. There's still a lot of questions that are being basically circulated around of what people are focusing on for their ARPA funds, because there's so much information out there that people are still absorbing.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the board? Nope. No? All right. Next thing on the agenda is to recognize and approve a donation in the amount of $167.24 for the Poor Meadow Brook Trail. Conservation Commission had accepted the donation at their March 16th, 2022 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? 5-0, and thank you very much to the donor. It's always appreciated. Declare April 29th as Arbor Day. It's the 150th anniversary and a holiday near and dear to my heart.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Oh, stay. No.
5-0. All right. Next thing on the agenda is to declare the police cruiser as surplus, to be used as a trade-in. Ms. Green, do I have to read off a VIN number or anything like that?
We have, if you'd like to, we have the VIN number. Now, this is a 2016 police Ford utility vehicle that is being traded in for the new 2021 model.
All right, do you mind just reading off the VIN number, just to be on the safe
Absolutely.
side?
So the VIN number, it's number 1, F as in Frank, M as in Mary, 5, K as in kitten, number 8, A as in apple, R as in Robert, number 7, G George, A apple, 0, 4, 7, 6, 5.
Great, thank you. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved, seconded, all in favor? 5-0?
Yeah, I had my hand up.
Oh, okay.
Just passing the chairman's message down.
All right, I'm looking for a motion to vote to approve live entertainment license for Hanson Tavern Incorporated, DBA J&R's Indian Head Pub. Ms. Kemet?
Ms. Green, you know the question I'm gonna ask, because I ask it every time we have any licensing, question. Are they up to date on all fees? Have we had any violations? And, 12:30 seems quite late, because they are in the middle of, I mean, they've got residents around them. I don't know what this caused me to kind of question, what time do things
I
close
believe it's
down?
11:30.
Okay,
So
and they're
yes,
asking,
they
and
are
they're saying
going-
all days, which means Monday through Sunday, which seems a little bit, I mean, I want to support a business, but I think, going till 12:30, on a Monday night might be a bit
Well,
much.
so a live entertainment license, if I'm not mistaken, could be trivia. It could be, it's not necessarily.
It says bands, DJ, jukebox.
Okay.
For the proposed
So maybe it's the
forms.
jukebox that they want to use every day.
What we can ask them for, we can ask them to narrow down what their thought is. Because they have a Sunday license, currently that is active. So they wanted to add this so that they could have the live entertainment, where the current license they have says jukebox only. So they filled this out so that they could add a band and a DJ. But we can ask them to specify more on the dates and just bring to their attention that 12:30 goes beyond the curfew set aside in the bylaws.
Mr. Mitchell?
And has the police chief been notified about this? Live entertainment?
No, we haven't talked to the police chief. We have talked to Jerry, about it. There was just concerns on the sprinklers, because their capacity is 85. If they go beyond 85, they have to, install sprinklers, in the building. So, we will let the police chief know about this as well. But again, we'll ask them to specify, the days, saying all days is just too broad, to allow for live entertainment.
I guess my next question would be, and can we just benchmark and make sure that we're on par with Venus? And see how Venus is right next door? Just make sure that we're giving a fair judgment on everything.
Okay,
And then can we put this on the agenda for next week?
yes, we can.
Thank you. Old business, Green Hanson Earth Fest discussion on April 23rd, 2022. Revisit the vendor discussion on whether or not it's appropriate to have vendors on the town green, charge. And then, last time, that wasn't really discussed, was having the dumpster there. Unfortunately, the representative from Green Hanson is unable to attend tonight, due to, some family things at home. So I did talk to Kathy Granhart, who is organizing the event with Mary Ann Damasio. In the past, I'll start off with the easy part of the conversation. In the past, we have had a dumpster there that's been donated by Noonan. I don't know if it's Noonan again, but it's been no problem in the past. It's been great. People can come and toss in whatever stuff that they picked up. So the other part of the conversation is just the vendor, whether or not is it appropriate to have vendors on the town green, charging. So I think the follow-up action item was just to kind of check in with town council and see if they had any issues with it, what their thoughts are on it, and go from there. So, is there any update on that, Ms. Green?
I don't have an update. I have not heard that from Kate.
Did you need a motion on the dumpster? I feel, I
I think
we've
we
just sort
approved
of,
it, and I think
yeah.
it just was a check-in, just
Yeah,
to be
yeah.
clear that there was gonna be a dumpster there.
I mean, obviously, minimize damage to town property, yada,
Right.
yada. but,
Yeah, every year that they've done it, there hasn't been anything crazy that comes out of it. So, but, just to revisit the vendor discussion, we can have this discussion, at next week. I know that we keep on kicking things next week, but hopefully it'll be short. In the past, I wanna say we've had vendors on the town green charging, like for the Hanson Food Pantry, for the signs, they charge money there.
Okay, yeah, the food, but.
We've had people sell pumpkins for Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, flowers. So we've always kinda.
Fair enough. Yeah,
So-
but we should check.
So if we can just check in, and then we can just go from there.
Well, we were unsure when we had the conversation with her, if people were actually gonna be selling things, because she said that vendors would come and act, and show the products. You know, to see what, there's to show what you could do with recycled products. But as far as actually selling them there, we had a brief conversation, and that's where we weren't sure if she was actually gonna have people there selling it or just showing it.
Yeah,
But-
she would like to see if we could sell it,
To
cause
sell, okay.
make it worth their time, to come out. Next item on the agenda is to ratify and execute the town administrator's contract. So I'm looking for a motion,
Didn't we take that motion
did
last
already.
week?
We all signed it last
Yeah.
week.
It's just to sign it.
Oh, just to sign it, okay, perfect.
So this is the corrected copy.
Perfect. While we're signing, I'm looking for a motion for one-day licenses for September, as printed on the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? 5-0. And then I'm looking for a motion to approve open session meetings minutes for March 8th and March 15th of 2022.
So moved.
Moved, seconded, all in favor? 5-0. Oh,
Nope.
nope,
Nope.
okay.
Were you absent one?
0-1.
Oh, and I was actually absent too.
Do you want to separate?
Yeah, we'll separate them.
Yeah, separate, okay.
So,
I was after.
I'm looking for a motion to approve, March 8th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? And it's gonna be 4-0-1. I was absent for that meeting. And then I'm looking for a motion to approve March 15th, 2021 meeting minutes, and the only member absent was, Mr. Mitchell.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Just-
4-0. What?
I'm sorry, just one tweak, Lucia, or through you, Mr. Chair.
Mm-hmm.
It says members present, and Kenny's listed there, but that he's also listed
Good
as
catch.
absent, so.
Which one is that?
March 15th.
3:15.
So I'm looking for a motion for the amended, minutes.
So moved.
Moved,
Second.
seconded, all in favor? 4-0-1. Thank you, good catch. With that being said, town administrators report?
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the board. So just to report, we had another busy 2 weeks in the office, although not as busy as the prior 2 weeks. We only answered 140 calls. We welcome a number of residents in the office, department heads and employees, basically on a daily basis. People come in and need our assistance. To give an update on the bylaw codification process, so we have successfully forwarded to general code all of our town bylaws, which includes general, planning, zoning, conservation bylaws, and any updated bylaws. So they're now in general code's possession, and they have started the review and editing process. One Stop, Massachusetts, the One Stop grant program. So, Tony DeFrias and myself had a Zoom meeting with Tracy Coster and Jeff LaPlante, and she's with the Environmental Strategies and Management, and they're the company that's assisting us with all of those grants. So what we did was we talked about the statement of interest, the feedback, and looked at the applications. The applications for each grant is 39 pages long, and we have to submit one application for each grant. So Tony, myself, and Tracy Coster are looking at these applications, and what we're doing is we're each putting the strengths that we have in writing towards that particular part of the application. So Tracy's gonna put her strength and her expertise as far as, green fields in scientific and environmental. Tony's putting his strengths as far as planning. I'm gonna put my strengths as far as reasoning and saying why we need these. So this is a work in progress. The date to start submitting the applications opens May 3rd, and we have a month to submit them. So we're starting now to give us a month to complete these 39-page applications. So we're gonna hope for the best on that. Selectmen Kemet and myself had a Zoom meeting with Ann Donner. She is with Ann Donner Consultant and Strategies. And we had a conversation with her about the strategic plan. She has worked with a number of municipalities, including Whitman recently, in generating a strategic plan for them. So she talked with us about ideas and thoughts. She's gonna put a proposal together and hopefully get it to us either at the end of this week or the beginning of next week, so we can review the proposal. She has a lot of ideas. She is well-versed in municipalities. She's been on various boards. Her husband is a planning board member, so she knows the workings of municipalities.
Yeah, and she was, I just thank you so much for really, you know, getting her, and, she really was, I can't wait for you guys to talk to her and hear what her plans are, because she really is gonna be bringing all kinds of stakeholders from different, you know, committees and commissions, elected people, citizens, you know, doing surveys. She's just, and come up with a plan that's gonna be a vision that everybody will be able to say, okay, this is where we're heading. Obviously, this is gonna be organic and it will evolve. And, you know, we will head in this direction, and then, I don't know, we get revenue or something changes, and we'll have to kind of tweak it accordingly. But it was a great conversation, and, you know, I think she's gonna do a good job.
So just to give an update on the cell tower over at the middle school. So the pole that they've been waiting for has been installed by National Grid. And the company that's been constructing it is now completing the secondary installation of the conduit and transformer pad. So moving along, we also received licensing agreement from Verizon, from Verizon regarding that pole, which I just need one more signature, and we send this off to them. It just needs Matt's signature. So, hopefully, we're gonna see this cell tower online, soon. Things are moving forward, so, wanted to provide everybody with that update. I am keeping right up with what's going on with that.
And if you, I'm sorry to interrupt, Lisa, but if you need me to deliver that envelope to South Yarmouth, I will do that.
We
So,
can't reimburse you for mileage.
I don't care, I want the cell tower.
Yeah, it's working. The process for the Economic Development Manual that we received a Community Compact grant for is finally underway. We received just the one proposal that the Economic Development Committee reviewed, and I have signed the contract and sent it off to the company, and hopefully in maybe 4 months or so, we'll have an Economic Development Manual, which will be available to any business who is thinking about, geez, I'd like to move my business to Hanson, what do I need to do? This manual will be a guide for them on what departments to look at, you know, who they can talk to, and really just provide something to them rather than having them have a question mark and not know where to go. And so our building department is closed, the rest of this week and next week. We have our building commissioner who's out on medical leave until April 19th. Prior to the scheduling of this medical leave, the administrative assistant had booked a vacation that falls right in the middle. We do have our prior building commissioner, Bob Curran, who was filling in for Kerry Glass for any emergency inspections that have to take place. And if people just have questions or somewhat, they can give my office a call and we'll help them the best we can. But they will reopen on April 19th. And last but not least, upstairs in our meeting room A, which is on the second floor, we now have a monitor that people can hook their laptops up if they want to give a presentation. It was installed today by our IT director and our facilities maintenance technician, Charlie Baker. They did a great job. It's up and running. And it's very easy. Anybody who brings a laptop, plugs in the UBC, plugs it into the wall, up it shows on the monitor. So it's a 65-inch monitor. It looks awesome.
That's great.
So we finally brought that meeting room up to the present with technology.
I have a question, for you, Ms. Green. Budget, general budget?
Yes. So with the package that you received today with the warrants, there is a budget update that Todd prepared that shows that with the cuts in the sharpening of the pencils that we've done, And with the surprise of the schools that came out with a 5.5% assessment to the town on March 16th, we brought our budget deficit down to $278,572, which, I don't know if you remember, was close to $1 million, a little over a month ago. The school assessment came as a surprise, where the assessment that was forwarded to us on February 16 was 4.1% assessment. A month later, they came out to us with a 5.50% assessment, which was a large increase that we were not expecting. So again, we further needed to sharpen our pencils, and that's where we are right now with the budget. 278,572 is the deficit right now, and we do continue to look for ways to cut, any way we can without impacting personnel. And again, it's a work in progress, with hoping that the school will lower the assessment, a little bit. I did have a conversation with the Whitman Town Administrator, who indicated to us that if there is a change in the the non-mandated busing assessment, if there is a change in that formula, that, with the lowering of the assessment for Whitman will be able to afford their 4.875 assessment within their levy, which puts us in a difficult position, because we're at 5.50. If Whitman is saying that they can afford their assessment within their levy, there's not gonna be a lot of leverage and ground for us to ask the schools to lower their assessment to, say, 3.3%, that we can fit within our levy. So it's a difficult position that's changing on a daily basis. I double-checked with John Stanbrook, who is now their finance director and business director, and to date, he is not aware of any changes in any of the assessments, especially for the busing at this point.
Ms. Kevin?
Is there a way for us to reach out to Whitman as a partner, in knowing in part why we're where we are, and ask, if they will partner with us and ask them to lower the assessment? Just because they can afford it doesn't mean they necessarily want to put things on hold and want to pay all of that money as well. And I'm just wondering, I don't know how we open up that dialogue. I know you're talking to Lincoln, but I think that as a good partner, I know there've been years in the past when Whitman could not afford what they were assessed, and we as a good partner said, okay, we'll work with you to work with the district to lower that assessment, and we were successful in doing that. So I just wonder if that's something that we might be able to work on.
Absolutely, absolutely, yep. That was just an initial conversation that I had with him, to get their feeling on this newest assessment that the school committee certified on March 16th. So we still have some work to do.
Ms. Kevin?
If we're okay with the budget, I did have a couple I think they're quick questions. Memorial Day, have we heard from, Mr. White on plans for Memorial Day? I know, there is a lot of pent-up energy and demand about having a bang-up Memorial Day celebration because we haven't been able to, sufficiently, celebrate it for the last couple of years. And I think Tim emailed me, or I heard from Tim, or we talked to Tim, I don't know. But I know he's planning on doing something, and he's planning on making it spectacular, but I was wondering if it was possible for him to just maybe come to, it doesn't have to be the, one of the next meeting, but maybe towards the end of April, maybe, if you think it's appropriate, and just give us a little update, because it seems to me he may need some help and some support, and the earlier he asks for it, I think the better off he's gonna be.
Absolutely.
And also, I noticed in our inboxes today, we had our, town auditor report. I was wondering, are we planning on having them come to talk to us?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. Perfect.
Thanks.
Any other questions for our town administrator's report? And then I guess my last question for you, Ms. Green, in the investigation, any update on the investigation?
Yes, so, as I noted, the attorneys that are conducting the firm that conducting the investigation have all the documents that they've requested from us and the other boards. Actually, I met one of them today. He was in, to gather some more documents. I gave him what we had with that, what he requested today, and I will be following up with another department tomorrow on additional documents that he was looking for. So I'm gonna be doing that tomorrow morning, because he was in late today. And, they're still going through the process. One thing that's important to realize is that we can't rush this. We can't appear to rush it. If we come off as if we're rushing it, then it will seem that no matter what result they come out, that it's flawed because we tried to push them through and rush it. We need to let them do their work. Just, get them the documents or whatever they're requesting as quickly as we possibly can, and let them do their job that we hired them for. I can report they are within the budget that we set. Actually, they're under the budget, so they are not anywhere close to the budget that we had set them. They understand, where we're coming from, and that they're very mindful of that.
Mr. Mitchell?
Did we give them the updated information that we received last week?
Yes,
Thank you.
immediately.
Mr. Perkins? Do you mind just coming to the podium just for the audio? Thank you. And then just state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Board of Selectmen. Kevin Perkins, 52 Pierce Ave, Unit Number 1. So I was actually here, I was upstairs zoning board meeting, and I figured I'd stop in. So just wanted to stop in actually to ask about the update on the zoning board of appeals investigation, but also I wanted to make sure that the board did get a copy of the disclosure I filed back in July 1st that was stamped and signed by the clerk, just because that was brought up to me actually by the State Ethics Commission, the investigator that contacted me, that he was not available to get a copy of that from the town hall, whether it was in the clerk's office or in the selectman's office. So I actually had to produce my original copy to the State Ethics Commission. And since then, they actually gave me a determination letter that I also stamped in with the clerk, that I wanted to make sure that you all have copies of that disclosure that I filed way back in July, that you guys have seen that, because it disappeared from the town hall. Ironically, right after you guys had a meeting discussing security at the town hall about key fobs and whatnot. It was like right after that I spoke with the State Ethics Commission, and they couldn't locate it. They called the clerk's office, they said, we have no recollection of Kevin Perkins filing a disclosure, which I said, we have an issue here, because I've filed more than one, and there's nothing there. And I spoke with Lisa, and Lisa said there was nothing in the selectman's office either, which you guys, as the appointing authority, should have that on file as well.
So, well, I'll just correct you right there, Mr.
Sure.
Perkins, is our office does not maintain records of disclosures. We
Okay.
acknowledge them.
Yep.
And then the town clerk will maintain those records.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily our office maintaining these records or anything like that.
Sure.
It's just that we acknowledge them as a board, that's the appointing authority, and that's all we do in our office.
Okay.
Just
But
for-
this entire board has received or seen a copy of the disclosure that I'm talking about?
I don't know what you're talking,
I have received it.
Okay.
what was the disclosure?
Lisa emailed it to us.
Did I email it to you? Yeah, I mean,
Emailed it to me.
the July 1 disclosure, I have not seen, and I didn't email that to you.
So that's my
actual
concern, that I
disclosure.
filed the disclosure that's stamped in by the clerk and signed by the clerk, that this board was very interested in, that nobody's taken the time to look at that. That's my first issue that I have a concern with.
You're assuming we got it.
It's in the town hall. If you guys wanted to go look for it, which everyone was interested in the zoning board a while back and interested in me.
One second.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. The way that the disclosures work is they are to be filed with the appointing authority. So the town clerk is actually not, she needs to keep a copy, but they're supposed to be filed according to the state ethics rules with the appointing authority. So a copy should have been given to both the town clerk and to our office. Now, if it was, that's great. I do not recall seeing a July 1st. I don't know what it just closed, so I don't know.
Well, have you have you seen a copy of it, or maybe could you get a copy, because I requested
We saw
again?
a disclosure. I saw one disclosure about
Okay.
work that you did with Mr. Cushing on a house up near Heidi's Hollow. That's all I know
Yep, so
of.
there's a disclosure,
Yeah.
and you've all received the determination from the Ethics Commission? You've all seen that, because that was stamped in and made a public document with the clerk as well. And I asked Ms. Green to pass that information along to all, so you all have seen
I
that?
saw that, but a determination absent what what was being investigated is completely meaningless.
No, I'm just
Hold on,
asking that.
Just, if we can.
I just wanna
forward
make sure you receive the
Mr. Perkins,
documents, that's all.
Mr. Perkins, just through me, just so we're not
Yeah,
getting
sure.
into
Yeah.
a
So,
shouting
Mr.
match
Chair,
and whatnot.
that
So-
the entire board has received a copy of that determination from the Ethics Commission?
Yep.
Okay.
But to Ms. Kemet's point is, we received a letter, and I'm not
Yep.
trying to pick an argument or anything
Yep.
like that, but it's just, we received a letter saying, Mr. Perkins, we have reviewed Mr. Perkins' complaint,
Yep.
we don't see any I don't know it word by word, but basically it just was, we received a complaint about Mr. Perkins, we have not seen any conflict with this complaint, and that was it. We didn't see the initial complaint.
Yeah, we don't know what it is.
So it could be a
I
different.
can't even see the initial complaint.
Right,
What I'm
so-
saying is, the information that's out there, I believe you have more that there's not an issue than information that says there is an issue. That's my point.
Well, I guess our investigator will figure that out.
And my issue is that information is going to this town hall and not making it to you. That's a concern.
May I respond?
Ms. Green.
So, it was just recently that this board in an open meeting, and I started to look for the meeting, talked about seeing disclosure, acknowledging and seeing disclosures, and that was recently, and that, I came on board. Since the board had that discussion and said, we want to start seeing these disclosures, you've been seeing the disclosures.
yes, we have,
We
yeah.
get them and we put them on the agenda. Prior to the board having that discussion, and I can't pinpoint the exact date, but it was after July 1st. Prior to that date, we did not collect any disclosures and present them to the board. And I don't think the prior town administrators did that either.
No, they did not.
So it was only until you had the discussion about disclosures and, saying, we want to see them, we want to acknowledge them, that's when we started it,
May I address that?
so.
It was actually as a result, I think, of that disclosure, because I said, why didn't we see this disclosure? We're the appointing authority. That's the way the rules read. We're supposed to be seeing it. I reached out to the town clerk. The town clerk said, well, we've never done it that way. I said, well, that's what the rules are. We should be doing it that way. And so I mentioned to you, we got to get our act together on this and make sure we're doing the right thing. So that's how that all happened, because
Right.
it was like, well, why wouldn't, if we're the appointing authority, it sort of made me wonder, like, how many other disclosures did we get that people were well-intentioned and this board never got?
Right, well, since, like I said, we had that discussion, we have got the disclosures and put them before the board for recognition. So it was that conversation going forward that it did it, but prior to that, again, I came on board April 26th, so prior to that, I don't believe the board had that opportunity to acknowledge disclosures.
No.
So we've begun a new chapter in that, and have been following it since.
I do, Mr. Chairman, I do have a couple of questions, with the investigation. So, what was the budget that was set forth for this investigation? What was the budget amount, dollar amount?
500.
$7,500, and I think we figured that out at one of the meetings. It was around 40 hours of work for this attorney that's conducting the investigation.
About that, yes.
So, I don't know about you, but I work 80 hours in a week. So the average person will say 40 hours, so it's been how many weeks since this investigation was started?
But it doesn't,
I'm just saying, how much time has gone by, and we have 40 hours of work that we allocated for, and we're
Well,
probably at about
Mr.
an hour and a half per week
Mr.
of work.
Sure, yeah, so Mr. Perkins, just because the money is there, and he's been working along whatever it is, there's been a lot of things that we've been doing on our side of things, collecting documents, going through our records. We've been doing all that work, and then we send it along to them to go through it. So it doesn't necessarily mean that he hasn't been doing his job, or we're over budget, or anything like that. It's just the way of the process. So that's all I have to say for that. Mr. Hickey, you have the last comment, and then we're moving on.
Kevin, I'd have to tell you, there's no one more surprised than me that the attorney was in late today, looking for more information. I have been on this every step of the way, and that is a surprise to me that they're still looking for information. Basically, our hands are tied here. I was in the office this morning, I was in town hall this morning, and for the attorney to come in and ask for more information this afternoon was very surprising to me.
So with that being said, I'm going to move on with the agenda because it's 9 o'clock and we still have work to do in executive session.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Perkins. With that being said, anything else for your town administrator's report, Ms. Green?
Nope, that'll do it.
All right, I'm looking for a motion. Let me get to the agenda. I am looking for a motion to enter into executive session in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Exception 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares, to wit, fire union and employee arbitration. Moved?
Second.
Second by Mr. Mitchell. Roll call vote. Mr. Weeks?
Aye.
Ms. Kennett? Myself? Aye. Mr. Mitchell?
Aye.
And Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Aye. And we're now in executive session at 8:55 PM.